Da, 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 da. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, good morning, good morning. We've got a good one today, girls. I'm excited. Dun, dun. Right. Get your coffees. Get your shots of alcohol. Just kidding. We don't drink in the morning. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So today, first of all, shout out to Elvin and her beautiful music for this introduction this morning. Okay, shout out to Elvin. We'll go ahead and mute that. Check out Elvin's music here on YouTube and Spotify. Okay, so today we've got a few topics we're going to cover. But to begin today, let's review some questions that I got about the levels. Then we'll jump into our two main topics. Secondary topic about manliness and eating meat, inspired by the Discord. Shout out to the Discord. Thank you for sending good stream ideas to me. And then the third topic, I found this TikToker recently, and I was fascinated with his dynamic with his MAGA family. And I thought, man, we got to watch these TikToks together. And I think it will be a lot of fun. So I got two questions on my latest levels video, which I did yesterday, and they kind of complement one another, and I just want to explain it and then, see what comes about. So here are the two questions. I'm going to read them to you. So the first one says, oh, neat topic. Have you ever considered that being limited to our biology implies no free will? There is no room for will if it's all biology. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot, which is why I reference Robert Sapolsky's work. It's why I reference that I think we're evolved animals. It's also why I reference we can have levels to our biology, right? So complementing that question, okay, another user said, wait, did I share the right one? Yeah, I did. Okay. Another user said, do you think someone can shift between levels? Hold on, did I share the wrong? Oh, I didn't. No, sorry. The screenshot looks different than the comment I'm moving off of. My bad. Okay. Do you think someone can shift between levels? They said, for instance, I'm a successful 30-year-old with a cushy corporate job, and I've worked very hard. I'm aware enough to know that I'm a 2, and it doesn't bother me because I know I'm on the journey to be hopefully 5. Love that. However, I have severe manic depression. When I'm good, I'm great. And when I'm depressed, I get almost dysfunctional. Would you say I'm a 1 in these moments? Or do you not think you can switch between these so easy? Okay, so now stay with me here while I slowly move us in the direction where I want us to be. Now to explain this. So one question is about that biological limitation, implying the lack of free will because of biology. The secondary question is asking, is my mental health the difference between my introspection levels? And so I'm going to explain this bringing out paint again, because we need paint to help us. Okay, let me pull this up for us. Okay. So, much like we talked about yesterday, we all exist in bubbles, and the bubbles our perception. And our perception will be limited on the bubble. Okay, so it's a relationship with us and everything outside of us. So, biology is what you are. Genetics, DNA, atoms, that's what you are. That's what we are. Within the components of that reality, there is an endless pathways of experiencing that experience, right? So you are not limited by your biology, you are limited by reality. So will exists within the construct of biology. It just doesn't look like what people think it is. I had a panel once, and the boys on the panel versus the girls on the panel I was dying. The boys on the panel were talking about how we basically transcend our nature. Because in regular colloquial terms, we use nature as something that's automatic or without human intervention, which is to imply that we are not nature. We are nature. Everything we create is a part of that nature. Our manipulation of nature creates non-nature, in quotation marks. Right? So that idea is so limited because we have convinced ourselves we are transcending nature. We are not. So, okay, will exists within your ability to have that elevated relationship with your nature. Wow, good job, Brittany. Whoop. Okay, so level 1s, 2, 3, 4, 5, having different relationships with their biological default nature. It's all biology. All of it is bio. Okay, all of it is biology. Let me make myself smaller. Hold on. Everything is biology. You're just having a different relationship with your biological relationship, which is what 5ness is. It's radically accepting you are nature. You are part of nature. You can't escape it, but you can challenge the bounds of your caveman brain. Caveman. Okay. Not that ones are cavemans, but just stay with me here. Your caveman brain, your lowest denominator of, I guess, relationship with, to your highest relationship with, okay? When you're mentally ill, you're having a biological experience. When you're, having a triggered moment, when you're depressed, you are simply having a biological experience that might, for a second, hinder your relationship with mind, body, and consciousness, okay? So in the moment that you are having a mental health moment, your mind might be challenged, your body might be the vessel in which it reacts, but you're there. Your consciousness is there. When I'm triggered, there is a voice in my head, it's me, that says, hey, Brittany, you're fucking triggered, bro. Your body is shutting down. Focus. And I go, fuck. And then my mind is like a computer that's giving me the blue screen of death. And my body is like, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And my consciousness is like, hey, sit on the couch and chill, bro. Vibe. You have nothing to do. You're triggered. It's done. Your body is working on its own. Your mind is working on its own. Your consciousness has to keep them in check. So when you go to therapy and you learn DBT and you realize like you can transcend your triggers, not because you rise above them, but because you learn to be the arbiter of them. You learn to give them a space within your biological experience. So you can take that knowledge. We know that when we bodybuild, when we run fast, some of it is you're born with it, for sure. It's the cards you're dealt. But so much of it is training. So much of it is in your control, but only because you're like everything is falling into place for you to have that experience. So, you don't move levels when you're mentally ill. You eventually, I think, have the knowledge and the tools to even know that you're having a trigger. Think about all the people in your life who don't know they're triggered. Think about yourself when you didn't know you were triggered. And now you have a name for it. Now you're able to say, oh, my bad, I'm triggered. And no one's going to punish you for it because there's nothing immoral about being triggered. The narrative in public discourse, especially amongst right-wingers, is that you should be punished for being triggered. Or people should be afraid of you if you're triggered, which I've even seen in, quote, liberal spaces that I think are just centrist spaces, right? There is nothing immoral or unethical about being triggered. Now, you can, if you do not have a good relationship with your triggers, end up accidentally or at some point on purpose, if you don't get a handle on it, hurting people. But that's not likely if you get the right help and you do the right tools and you have the right values. So your level of introspection doesn't shift because you're depressed. But, and this is key, if you're in a medical coma and there's no activity, then I would say in that moment, you're not even any level. You're not even a 1 or a 5. You're a because you're not able to utilize the tools of introspection, extrospection. The skill of being able to use the 5 framework in your life is the skill of being able to say, regardless of the situation I'm in, I'm going to have the highest level that exists in this thing, or the deepest level, depending on how you like to look at things, with my biological experience. So free will exists within the limits of your biological experience. You do not transcend your nature. You do not transcend your biology. Does that make sense? Yes, chat says it's like saying the bird's nest is not nature because it was a manipulation of nature. Yeah, like that we are birds. We are literally beavers and birds collecting shiny things, building nests, doing little dances of seduction. We are beavers building the dam. And then we have the audacity to call the dam not nature. What do you think it is, girl? What do you think it is, girl? So again, we do this because we want to move ourselves away from the connection that is us, which is a part of this like universal soup. You do not have to lack introspection because you're mentally challenged or ill or something like that, right? I think that's, and let's be so for real right now. Can I just be so for real? Most philosophers are definitely autistic. So like, if we're going to talk about disabilities, autism, neurodivergency, most of the people who spend their life contemplating the universe, definitely not neurotypical. Okay? So like, I think we're sitting here looking at ourselves. Half of the artists that people love are depressed as fuck. Like half of the artists that we even give any credit to are cheating, abusive, horrible people, to the point where we even justify the art because the outcome was so good. Good art doesn't need abuse or depression, but depressed people can create beautiful things. You know what I mean? Like you can be a depressed person who doesn't need to be abusive to create beautiful art. But like we know that our emotions are so real, and when we create art that is identifying with others see themselves in that art. That's when we're moved. We're moved by emotion. We're moved by performativity, which is why today's topic is going to be why men get marketed meat. Why meat is marketed towards men and their gender performance. Men are convinced that they are more of a man, gender performance, by eating an animal, because that's what a real man does, i.e. gender performance. I'm fascinated. I love it. I love these bubbles. So, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I think people want it one way or another. Free will is it's very interesting. When I hear the hardcore determinists versus the hardcore free willers, they don't understand that it's both. You're both, guys. You can't separate them. The fact that determinists and people who believe in free will, like, can't understand that, like, you can't be one or the other. That's why philosophy is so limited, because you think it's one or the other. It's both. It's both things. You can change so much about your life, but there will be a limit. You just haven't reached it yet in the way that you think you have. But the world has convinced you we've reached it. It's just men's nature to want to fuck kids, right? That's like a narrative we hear so much more often than we are willing to like say with our chest. It is crazy how many people will say, well, it's just men's nature to rape women in bathrooms. Yeah, it's within your nature in a biological sense, but you don't think you can have a higher relationship when it comes to consent. Consent is taught. We do not teach our kids consent. We think we do, but we don't. We do not teach human beings. We do not teach them because we don't think of them as animals that need to be trained, when we are literally animals that need to be trained. We are animals who need to have a real experience with understanding to make changes, which is why we'll also talk about, can you get through to your MAGA family? Why is it so hard to get through to people? Because obviously they're biological creatures, they're animals evolved over time. And a part of it is that you need time to let things sink in, especially if you're, neurodivergent or maybe hard-headedly neurotypical. Sometimes it does take time for things to really sink in. And I accept that. I accept that I need time to let things sink in. But once I get it, ooh, girl, you better watch out. Because I really get it. You better watch out. Okay? So with that said, unless you have a question, let's move on to the next topic, though I already do actually see a question. What are your thoughts about navigating people in one's life who don't respond well to someone being triggered, but are drawing boundaries? I'm not quite sure what that exactly means, so you might need to clarify, question mark. What are your thoughts on navigating people in one's life who don't respond well to being triggered, but are drawing boundaries? Like they are triggered and they're not doing the work, so then you're left doing the emotional labor. Is that what you mean? Like, so does that mean? Like they haven't figured out how to have a good relationship with their own triggers? Is that the question? Chat says, I literally need to sleep on things to understand them. I love to sleep on things, let me tell you. Sometimes I even problem solve in my dreams, which is exhausting, but sometimes I really do problem solve in my dreams. Like I'll ask myself questions in the dream, and it's kind of cool, That says, I'm finally getting to the point where I can pause when I'm triggered and say, hey, I got to take a minute. I'm shutting down. It feels so nice. Feels great. Chat says, so if I get triggered, I might have someone who won't respond well to the trigger, as though I'm bad for being triggered and get judged. Even if I draw a boundary, the boundaries may even make them respond worse. Boundary may even make them respond worse. I'm not, okay, I don't. Okay, well, maybe this will make sense, because this is what it sounds like you're saying. Sometimes I look at my partner and I think, damn, if I had ended up with anyone else, this would have made my life so much harder. Like, I look back on my relationships and my exes, and I realize, like, one, we were really young and definitely not equipped for the reality. We didn't have the education for handling each other's triggers in our relationships. We didn't understand what was going on. And to be fair, we were all undiagnosed, right? Like, I was living in a bubble of just undiagnosed people that I was with, and a lot of us just didn't have the information. So the way we handled triggers were so inept. We were inept. And now that I'm in my 30s, it's so much easier because we're educated. We've both gone to therapy. We have access to doctors. We believe in medication. Like, we know what to do. So it's easier for us. But even so, for some people, triggers are really confusing, even if they don't realize they experience it and other people experience it around them. So a boundary isn't about what they do, it's about what you do. If you're putting down a boundary because you're getting triggered and they're not reacting in a way that helps you, then I don't know why you're interacting with them. I think I'm confused still. Because if you feel judged for being triggered and you genuinely aren't trying to take advantage of people, you're genuinely working on it, you're genuinely not trying to hurt that person when you're triggered, then maybe that person and you don't have a good relationship in order to be a safe space for you, right? So I'm not really sure. But I will say that my greatest boundary around people who can't handle my triggers is to say, hey, I love you. I'll see you next week. And then to walk out of the house and go take care of myself. It's not about blaming them. It's not about being judged by them. You know? Chad says, I'm confused by what you mean by a boundary. Are you sure it's not a request if you're making of them? Like, leave me alone, I'm upset. A boundary is what you do regardless of what other people do. It's for yourself. An ultimatum is telling them they have to do something or you're going to do something. Right? I'm confused by what you mean by boundary. Are you sure it's not a request? Oh, that was for somebody else in chat. Sorry, my bad. My bad. I'm just reading. I'm just reading chat. Oh, my bad. Yeah, I'm a little confused, but I do want to help. I'm not sure what that could mean, given the social situation. It depends too on, like, because that's the part of the deconstruction that is important. When I get triggered now, like sensory, and I'm going to count trigger as anything that is not within my choice, but is happening to me, and I understand that it's not me grounded. When it happens now, it's pretty chill. It's relatively uncomfortable for about like 10 minutes, and then it's like, oh, hey, I think I'm far away or triggered or like a little upset, but it's literally not a big deal. Like, the day goes on, everything's great, but that's because, again, there's no shame or blame, because I know I'm not doing it. You can't trigger. I'm not doing it. It's happening to me. I am being triggered. I am not triggering myself. Now, the reason, though, is because I also work really hard not to put myself in situations that get me triggered, to navigate myself out of those situations, and to remind myself that I'm responsible for taking care of my triggers. But also, like, my partner also believes in science and believes in mental health and is able to support me and understands, like, I don't control my trigger. I don't control the PDA. I don't control it. I just have a relationship to it. So I can't always help that, like, now my mood is shifted and I have to recontextualize. You can't introspect your way out of a trigger. You can only introspect your way into having a better relationship with that trigger. And that's what we're aiming for. Now, eventually, because of introspection, you will have less triggers and less problems because your body is learning a new way to exist, right? Because so much of our triggers are protective mechanisms that our body's like, oh, I remember this pattern. You're in trouble. I have to protect you. And then the body inputs. It's like that movie. What's that movie with all the emotions? The Disney movie where she has all the emotions in her head. It's like that. And it's like my emotions in my head are fighting each other about who should take control and how to fix the problem. But it's like a problem you have to solve every time. Inside Out. Thank you, chat. Inside Out. That's what it's like For everybody. Not everybody. Every single human on the planet is exactly like that. It's just when you get a diagnosis and you go to the hospital, or you're the person who learns words, now you're held to a higher standard because you know better. Versus these other people don't get diagnosed, don't use the proper words, and pretend it doesn't exist so they never have to face themselves. But then now we're living in a society with a bunch of people that won't face themselves. And now we're held to a higher standard than them because we have the label. And it's true in some way that I have to hold myself to a higher standard because I know better. But the fact that they're avoiding the label and avoiding the responsibility of taking care of themselves so they don't have to be responsible, I think is a greater sin. You know? Let's see. Chet says, I might say I'm upset right now and I need to leave this conversation, so I'm going to do that. And the other person might reprimand me for that alone and was already judging me for being triggered. I'm curious to know what Brittany's thoughts about it is all. Let's see. I'm upset right now and I need to leave this conversation, so I'm going to do that. And the other person might reprimand me for that alone. Reprimand you? Are they your mother? Like, no one is, I'm an adult. Don't reprimand me. Like, are you my mother? So first and foremost, who is this person who's reprimanding you? And why are we interacting with them? You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't reprimand me. I'm an adult. The best part about being an adult is I can do what I want. Like Brittany said from Love is Blind, we love her. When your mother cooks you dinner and puts it in front of you, you eat it because you don't have a choice. But I'm an adult now, and I can do whatever I want. So first, I don't let people reprimand me. You're not allowed to reprimand me. Thank you. Okay? Second of all, if you come to me with care and love and you genuinely see a problem, we can talk about it. But if you come at me with your beliefs and your bubble and you're trying to push me into a direction, we're going to have a open with boundaries relationship, which we should have with everybody. So if it's somebody we love, we say, I love you. I'll see you at a different time. And you make the decision when and how to interact with this person because it's about your mental health. Okay? And if they are overstepping your boundaries, then you can block them temporarily or not at all and just don't answer. Okay? No one in general. I'm genuinely just curious to know what you think about it. Since we're talking about boundaries, I like knowing what people think. Oh, well, in that case, yeah, I think you should live your best life in the healthiest way possible and be smart with who is in your life and how you interact with them. And regardless of how much you might miss a person, sometimes the best thing to do is never interact with them again. Or sometimes if you miss a person, show them love, but with really strict boundaries. Okay, with that said, oops, did I just close that window? No, wait, did I? No, it's here. Okay, let's jump into our secondary topic for today. I found 2 videos about the relationship between men and eating meat that I thought might be really cool to explore. Let's watch this short video right here from Eater. I don't think we've ever watched this channel before, Eater. And let's see what they have to say about it.
Male or female? What about this steak? Would you refer to this carton of milk as sir or ma'am? Is this a lady? This isn't some cute whimsical exercise. It's actually an oversimplified version of a real-life study that examines a persistent stereotype, that meat eating is inherently manly.
I am man, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I'm way too hungry to settle for chick food.
I put a paper with colleagues a few years ago called Is Meat Male?
That's Paul Rosen. He researches the psychology behind food choice.
What would it mean to say that meat has male connotations? That's what the paper was asking.
His team assessed other foods too, but the link between masculinity and meat was the strongest.
But only for mammal muscle meat. So that, for example, a pancreas or liver was not seen as more male. Nor was chicken. It was just...
Chad says me speaking a gendered language. I don't think that's what they're referencing, since though gendered language is I think pretty universal, because even in America, we call America a she. I feel like America's a she. I've always referenced America as a girl. That's the irony. We love America. She's great. I've never said I love America. He's great. I've never said that in my whole life. So language is gendered. You know what I mean? I feel like they're getting to a point with this one here, but we boats are girls. You know what I'm saying?
mammal, muscle. Hamburger, steak, lamb chops, those are the kinds of things that were thought to be male.
It's hard to test and prove metaphorical associations like this. Rosen's paper was actually a compilation of 6 different studies. In one test, participants were asked to rate food as male or female on a scale of 0 to 10. In another, they free associated. The third measured implicit bias, which tested reaction times. The idea here is that you pair things faster when they feel true to you. The rest of the studies examined food preference, gendered words in other languages, and indirect associations.
See, this is what like prejudice can move you into. Prejudice is locked into you, and that's why you have to deconstruct it. It's like things you pick up. Bias and prejudice are very interesting things, And so when you think you've thought things through, you have to ask yourself, why do I have an automatic response to a situation? And this is why when people say like, I don't have bias or prejudice, I don't know what you're saying, but you're wrong. I don't know what you think I'm asking you when I say, do you have bias and prejudice? And you say no. I don't know what you think I'm asking you, but you cannot not have some form of prejudice and you don't see it in the way that people don't understand it because they think it's always bad or negative, which it can be most of the time. But it's that fact that they're trying to say, I am almost inhuman. Like, you are not a robot. And even robots, I would argue, will have bias and prejudice because they're made by people, So it just feels very silly to me, I think. People's like defensiveness over the fact that like we can test this. You will have an automatic response. You will have a thought into your head and it will take time to deconstruct it to have a different automatic thought, but you will still have an automatic thought all the same, right? Discord says, as someone whose dad saw meat as necessary, he comes from the bubble of non-meat is not filling or hearty enough. Something I heard every day is I didn't eat meat when I was a vegetarian as a teenager. Same. I said it to myself. Right? Like, even growing up, I was thinking, even a few years ago, I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to eat a meal without meat and I'm going to feel full. And let me tell you guys, I had an amazing lunch today. Just fabuloso, bro. So good. So delish. Okay. And I just sat there thinking, I cannot believe I'm not eating meat. Like, for real, I cannot believe it. Like, I'm just sitting, I just can't believe it, but it's happening. Like, I am in front of my eyes changing as a person. I'm like, look at me go. I told you I was in a transition. I told you all I was in a transition, and I know it's going to last a few years. I can feel it, but I cannot believe I am this Brittany. I'm shook to my core. My bestie, I told her, I was like, girl, she goes, Brittany, I don't even know what's happening. Who are you? And I was like, I'm changing, girl. It's happening. And she goes, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe you're not eating meat. And I was like, I know. Look at me. Right before my eyes.
Nutritionist David Katz has an idea of how these associations first arose.
What we find attractive or unattractive, like or don't like, more often than not, has direct links to evolutionary biology.
Ooh, evolutionary biology. Hold on. Chat says people might take the question about if they have a bias as my actions, behaviors, and treatments of others are reflective of my bias instead of is my thought process reflection of bias. That's one of the people that comes to mind every time I mention this conversation had said, are you asking me if my prejudice and bias makes me treat people differently? It doesn't, but it obviously does. I could make a list of 100 ways like this particular category of person or this particular individual treats people specifically because of their own bias and prejudice, but they can't see it because they see it as a positive when it's really inherently a negative. It's like a white knight that like worships women, but it's through infantilization. Because the only way you can be a white knight and be like, women are the greatest, they're on this pedestal, but I'd love to save them, is to create a prejudice and bias against any narrative surrounding that specific like categorization of person. And so you don't realize it. It's like white people who say things like, I'm trying to give good examples, like white people who are like, I'm not, Joe Biden said it. What'd he say about black students? It was something to the effect of like when white people say, I have nothing against black people. I think they can be just as smart as white people. It's like, what do you think you're saying? Like, what do you think you are saying? Because you think you're saying, I treat people all the same. But why did you even make the comparison? It's like the whole trans women versus like biological women. Like, what does this even mean? Trans women are in a lot of ways like a biological experience. So again, it's like, you know what I mean? Like when we're having like these conversations, we think our language, that's why even myself, I'm like, oh, why did I say that? Oh, why did I do that? Now, I don't think it's always the way the bubbles perceive. Bubbles are very limited. We talked about this with gender yesterday. Just because you're a non-binary progressive does not mean you are the most introspective. Because I think that's I don't want the limits of gender. I want to go beyond them. I don't want the limits of language. I want to go beyond it. Now, the world isn't ready for that conversation, but I don't need to go through it for the world. The world doesn't have to participate in my deconstruction for me to go through it, right? So, that's why I think it's so fascinating, this idea that people will go around, like, you have to be able to call yourself out. That's why we say on this channel, like, don't let your misandry speak for you, girls. Because we know that we become misandrist almost as a reaction to the patriarchy, to misogyny. But that's not what the direction we want to go in. We don't want to be retaliatory. We don't want to form our values around a hate or a dislike or even a protection of ourselves for others. We want to look for real truth, not the truth that's created out of defensiveness. Though that's necessary to understand that it's still real and valid and reasonable, and that's where the society is, but that might not be where you are as a person,
The argument goes, men were hunters and women were foragers. Men needed more meat to build muscle and chase down animals. The preference for meat gave them an evolutionary advantage. To Rosen, the biological argument is pretty overstated.
I don't think it's biological.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now! The meatloaf!
I think that's traditional. We didn't invent this. We're just carrying this heritage with us of tens of thousands of years of cultural evolution, mostly. Meat is generally the preferred food of humans. It's been a symbol of power, and men sort of own it in a way.
But don't get Katz wrong. He's on board with the cultural argument. To him, it's a matter of which came first.
All culture originates with biology.
Researchers generally accept that food preference diverged when work became...
It's also ironic when conservatives will talk about how it's our biological imperative that men are this way and women are this way. But the moment you talk about being an evolved animal over time, they're like, skirt, skirt. Absolutely not. God made me this way. So is it God's creation that is this way, or is it your biology? And they're like, it's both. I'm like, oh, see how we all pick and choose? And we do it all the time regardless. If I poke at conservatives a lot, but if I was to poke at the progressives would say maybe, or maybe even the vegans who were in chat the other day would say, like, when you say veganism is a journey, are you saying racism is a journey? And it's like, yes. Because we're biological creatures. Now, the way we react to racism is very interesting. That's why we're going to cover the MAGA family after this. We know the complicated part about being a person is that the people we love can be bad and good at the same time. I think this is what's so hard about being a person. This very old podcast by Ricky Shucks and Timothy Chansaransu, very old podcast, but I remember listening to it, and they were talking about being hit as kids and how the conversation can be a little awkward when you have it with, like, white people. And it can be a little awkward since, like, I was hit as a kid, and I know white people hit their kids, but, like, my bestie was not hit by their parents. Like, my best friend who's white, like, she was not hit by her parents. Like, a lot of my friends who are white were not generally hit by their parents, right? I was the weird kid. Like, it was very weird for me to tell them, like, oh yeah, like, we got hit as kids. They'd be like, oh, like, they were very shocked by that, But I tried to explain to them the difference between parents who hit their kids and you call CPS and parents who hit their kids and you help those parents realize it's a mistake. And that's the same thing with racism or homophobia or transphobia. I think we put too much effort trying to convince people that should just have CPS called on them, that they should be better parents, because the intervention they need is more than a good neighbor. They need literal, like, medical intervention at that point. Right? Because they're having such a specific biological experience that the relationship to higher, like, thinking or more in-depth thinking is not even on their radar yet. It's not even in their radar. And so that's the thing that we need to do. We need to have, I think, as people, better judgment, discernment about who we invest our time into. Okay? Which is why, again, I pick and choose who I'm willing to have conversations with, because I'm not interested in having a debate where we've already decided who's right or wrong and we're not going to budge. Because that's kind of like the dog whistle of debate communities is, oh, well, with the right information, I'm willing to change my mind. No, you're not. And you know you're not. You know, with the right information, you are not willing to change your mind. So, and we know that. And you can always tell because there's a way they sound. They don't know it though. In their head, they think it's true. When I talk to my religious family and they say, yeah, if you presented me with real data, I would change. No, they wouldn't, because they won't even look into the data that I've provided. When I provide them data, they go, I can't watch this video. I'm not continuing this. This is offensive to me. They're like children. I'm dealing with adults who can't watch movies. Like, I watched a documentary. It was the twin study, you know, on the Netflix, the vegan twin study. And there's a section where they watch porn and check how vegan diets impact your sexual drive, right? And right when I saw that, I was like, my parents can't watch this documentary. They'll turn it off. My grown-up parents who have the audacity to say that they're grown up would turn off documentaries that covered sex because it's offensive. Oh, they talked about porn and hentai, offensive. And these are the people you do not spend time talking with, because they won't watch a documentary because it's too icky. And then they're the adults who can't even fathom. Like, these are not mature people in that sense. They're adults in a lot of sense. They're very mature in a lot of sense. But in this particular area where we need the most amount of maturity, it's not there because it's too weird and foreign to them. They're not watching with curiosity and discovery. They're watching with like an offense to like their reality. Which is why when we talk about men and women, it's why when Trump says America is only going to see men and women and America is going to be English only. What are you so afraid of? What do you think they're so afraid of? They say they're afraid of us moving away from reality. You believe in a God. They can't fathom, right? That there's like and they can't. So what a waste of time, right? Don't do that. The question is, do you know when it's a waste of time? Because this is a struggle I think we're all going to have for the rest of our lives. When do we engage with these people? Even my vegan journey, or vegetarian or plant-based, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sharing it with people that I know aren't willing, not open to the conversation, and they're going to find it offensive to their lifestyle. Like, they're going to get defensive of their lifestyle. So that's what I've learned is like, I don't share things with people who are going to get offended, but also because I'm a public figure and a streamer, I want to make sure that I'm speaking my truth to the public, because that's different than the people we work with, or that's different than the people we go home to. You know, I'm here. This is what I want my community to be. I want my community to be open and curious and educated. I don't want my community to be scared to have hard conversations, but I also want us to be loving and compassionate through the process. Also, another dog whistle of the debate bro bubble is, oh, you don't want to have the hard conversation. You know, their version of a hard conversation is using non-science, not good data to prove why their prejudice, racism, homophobia makes sense. That is not the same thing. You know?
Specialized and diverged further once farming was invented.
Most of the evidence suggests that there was something of a division of labor.
This caused humans to become more efficient, but with that also came a cultural division of gender. Before this happened, it's possible we were more similar to our egalitarian primate and early human cousins, many of whom were adept hunters. As to whether biology informed culture or the other way around,
Nobody knows for sure, right? These are untestable hypotheses.
However, we can test perceptions today, which is what Rosen did in his study, and we can also test consumption. Manly meat imagery won't disappear anytime soon, but overall, meat consumption is down in the US, and vegetarianism is rising.
It's sort of an anachronism. It's a fallacy, the idea that you got to eat meat to get sufficient protein. But we can be big and strong eating plant foods as well, and you don't need to look much further than a horse or a gorilla to see clear evidence of that.
Okay. Unsurprisingly, Rosen's team found that the most feminine foods were salad and chocolate. The salad connection could be tied to
Dieting.
or
Foraging.
while the chocolate link seems rooted in culture. As an aside, some still believe women's hormones cause them to crave chocolate, but worldwide studies don't back this up.
What? Wait, what?
Aside, some still believe women's hormones cause them to crave chocolate.
Women's hormones cause them to crave chocolate. Women's hormones cause them to crave? I was taught that chocolate's just helpful and yummy and delicious when you're on your period. I was never taught that I crave it because I'm on my period or because I have hormones or that I was a girl. Huh.
But worldwide studies don't back.
I, by the way, have been able to find really delicious vegan chocolate, so I'm really excited about that. And I found vegan Big Newtons, which I was so excited about because, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not going to play with you. I'm pretty stoked. And I've been adding gluten back into my diet slowly, and it's going pretty well so far. So I'm pretty excited about stuff. Things are looking up.
Check this up. Whether any of these metaphorical links are cultural inventions, results of evolutionary hijinks, or a bit of both.
I don't think it's difficult to find arguments that make sense, and I don't know that we can do better than that.
Our conversation was mostly about the past, but Katz had this to say about the future.
Oh yeah, if you're looking for iron, I've heard that people should take more iron supplements on their period because like you're going to seek it out and it's helpful. It's also helpful to eat a lot more in your period, I've heard, and it has been helping me. I've been incorporating different things into my body and I see a huge improvement, like taking my iron supplements. And look, get your blood taken, do your blood stuff. I did mine a couple of years ago. Figure it out, but yeah, like there are things that are going to help some people, not help others, right? Because how could it be true when chocolate only grows in Central South America? Oh, like women naturally craving chocolate worldwide?
There were all sorts of reasons why we as a species, men and women alike, like meat, want meat, but that it's too damn bad in a world of nearly 8 billion Homo sapiens. The environmental costs of eating meat are extremely high, and that's fine when there are a few million Homo sapiens scattered across a great big empty world, but it's not the Stone Age.
The original Slurpee was the
Okay, now, who was this? Why is it Manly to Eat Meat? I'm going to link their video in chat. You guys can check it out. And then let's check out this channel here. Do, 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 do. Okay. This is Why Men Love Meat and How Food Companies Seduce Us. And I thought, oh, well, I'm excited already. Let's watch this.
What women want. The skeptical journalist. A female journalist asked famous designer Valentino, how did he create such a fashion empire? His answer was very simple. I know what women want. The skeptical journalist pressed him.
What do women want?
Yeah, I know what women want.
And what do they want?
They want to be beautiful.
Right now, you're probably asking, what in the world does this have to do with men and meat? I think the answer is people who specialize in knowing what we really want are the ones who create empires. And in the food business, they influence what we eat more than doctors and scientists do. Okay, that's a crazy bold claim. But let's see if I can convince you with 2 fascinating examples, and then we'll get to the incredible story of men and meat. The first example is when the Philip Morris Company bought Miller Beer, which was in 13th place among beers at the time. The Miller execs...
By the way, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but this is like a huge... I am obsessed with marketing because marketing is manipulation, and it's made to sort of exploit us. But that's why I love it so much. And it's interesting how we can see it, but we also fall for it sometimes. And I'm like, damn, I can think of all the ways my parents taught me not to fall for marketing, and in all the ways I have or my parents have. It's kind of insane how we know better, but we forget. We forget, like Sephora hauls, like makeup YouTube, that was all marketing. All marketing is hauls. Hauls are marketing. So many influencers who do fashion hauls don't even really buy the items. They go back and return them because nobody has that kind of money. So again, we have to be self-aware enough to be like, oh, you're trying to get me, bro. Oh, you're trying to get me. Okay. Well, how do I navigate the difference between I want this and the marketing is good? Why do you think they put snacks right by the register? They put snacks right by the register so you can, you know what I mean? By the way, guys, sign up for Patreon or become a YouTube member. Marketing is so fascinating because it's supposed to make you feel like this is, God, think about Frenemies. We just reviewed Frenemies. How good was that marketing? How good was the marketing? And it worked. Like it worked, whether intentional or not, though it is intentional. Like Ethan intentionally does things for marketing. Okay. Like there is an intentionality behind running a good business. And that's about giving people what they want or convincing people it's what they want or telling people it's what they want and they believe you. Self-care was such a good marketing ploy to get people to be convinced not to go to therapy, but to buy shit at Sephora and put it on your face and call it self-care. There's nothing wrong with self-caring with a bath, but it's not going to fix your actual problems. And then that's what they've sold you though. That this will fix your problem. It's not going to fix your problems. That's why every boy is a victim of the manosphere, because the manosphere is selling them a false product. If you do this, your life will change. If you do this, blah, blah, blah. When half these men are miserable, if not 90% of them, it's not working. And you can tell because it correlates with the loneliness epidemic, the meaning crisis. Like, marketing isn't meant to help you. Billionaires aren't trying to save your life. They're trying to give you or convince you what you want is this. And this makes them rich. And it makes you still needing more. It's a never-ending cycle. And that's why I say the world is a reflection of us. I can't blame the billionaire more than I can blame myself. But what I do is, instead of blaming, stop participating to the best of my ability. To the best of my ability, which is limited because I'm a person.
Like most beer executives, were master brewers of German descent, and they thought in terms of the taste, the texture, the water, and the hops. Surely the brewers thought if only the consumer knew we had better water, they would buy our beer.
The water. The pure, natural, artesian water found only at Tumwater. Today, there's only one Olympia brewery, at Tumwater. And Olympia is one of the most popular beers in the West. Proof that when it comes to beer, it's the water.
Does that remind you of the scientists and nutritionists who believe that if we only knew the power of greens, that would change everything? I'm not being critical of the great scientists and nutritionists, they're my heroes. I'm just saying. Philip Morris, the company that bought Miller, had to promise the Miller execs they wouldn't mess with their fine-tuned brewing process. But Philip Morris said, we know some things about men. After all, we turned an insignificant cigarette brand from the 1800s into a sensation, Marlboro. Men want to be cool and masculine like the Marlboro Man.
Yo, I'm convinced. Somebody give me a Marlboro. I do like me a Marlboro Light. Somebody give me a Marlboro. I want to be a cowgirl. I want to be a cowboy. I actually want to be a cowboy. I just want to be a cow, really.
At the time, Miller called itself the champagne of bottled beers and showed couples drinking together in a formal setting out of fancy glasses.
Enjoy life.
Enjoy life.
With Miller.
High life.
The champagne of bottled beer.
Miller's VP of marketing, whom we spoke to at length about this back in the day, quickly changed the setting to buddies drinking together in the bar with very cool retired sports heroes.
It's one of my bigger days. Let me buy a beer. Sure. These fans, I love them. When I came in, they didn't recognize me at first, but then when I told them who I was, next thing you know, they're buying me my favorite beer.
And with those ads, Miller started racing up the charts quickly, as Marlboro had done. This is where nutrition comes in, sort of anyway. The men couldn't drink as many full-calorie beers as they wanted in the bar without getting full. Passing on another round did not necessarily make you a cool kid among your buddies. So Philip Morris approached the Miller execs and asked them about diet beers, which had failed so spectacularly. And as you can imagine, the master brewers at Miller reacted with horror. Those beers tasted like pool water. Consumers had flatly rejected them. But Philip Morris made a good point. They had been marketed as diet beer to men who have a negative attitude about dieting and to women who have a negative attitude about beer. What if they called it Miller Lite and put manly men in the ads who argued about whether they chose it because it tasted great or it was less filling? The master brewers responded that they would need some millions of dollars to develop a version that didn't taste like pool water. But Philip Morris said, no, just license one of the diet beers that failed and pour it into the Miller Lite bottles, and let's do a test. How's this commercial for cool and masculine?
When you're a big guy like me, people always want to see just how strong you are. So after this arm works, this arm always relaxes with light beer from Miller. The light's got a third less calories than the regular beer, and it tastes great. What I like about it is it's less filling. So when you're in a hot match like this, you can't afford to get filled up.
You have the time?
Yeah. About 8:30.
Yeah, thanks.
Light beer from Miller.
Why is it so good? That's so good.
Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Next.
It was Olympia Diet
man.
Beer, one of the great failures that they poured into those Miller Lite bottles. And light beer became one of the great beverage successes of the last century. It was the exact same diet beer that men said in focus groups was disgusting and that they would never drink it. Today, the top 4 light beers, including from Miller, represent 50% market share of all beer sales. Okay, but Chris, it's a little bit of a stretch to refer to that as nutrition. And anyway, a good friend of ours said, 2 men, half a brain, 3 men, no brain. And that applies to men drinking beer in the bar and also to other stupid male tricks. And you should know because you're Exhibit A.
2, 1.
Valid points. Okay, here's an example for you that involves moms feeding their children. Oscar Mayer had been worried about the declining sales of bologna for years. The food scientist had tried every combination of fat, sugar, and salt to prop up declining sales, but it was of no use. There was a growing tide of awareness among consumers that processed meat was bad news for health. I can summarize in one word what women said about bologna in focus groups. Ew. So Oscar Mayer brilliantly decided to think beyond fat, sugar, and salt to another key ingredient, convenience. After years of experimentation and product development, they came up with an absolutely blockbuster product that combined bologna, processed cheese, and rich crackers. Lunchables. It got bologna sales fired up again, and this from mothers who said in focus groups bologna was disgusting and they would never feed it to their kids. And from there, Oscar Mayer could expand their empire to include a candy bar and a drink.
Ooh.
Notice the thing they put front and center to make you feel good about your purchase. Protein. The moral of the story is good marketers know more about what we want than we do, and they have billions of dollars to weave their magic. So what about men and meat? Well, somehow I get myself fascinated in history and end up reading books like this.
Ooh.
Turns out in the 1800s, vegetarianism was surprisingly popular. Two of America's largest homegrown religions, Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists, had health codes that advised eating little to no meat. The Seventh-day Adventists had a huge vegetarian health spa that attracted presidents of the United States and celebrities like Tarzan. But in 1901, the United States elected a force of nature as president. Teddy Roosevelt was a man's man who popularized the vision of cowboys and ranchers as symbols of masculinity that marketers still use today. He said men of milk and water were soft men. Along with advances in refrigeration in the day and shipping by rail, the Rough Rider-in-Chief gave meat a huge boost. Yeah, we men are suckers for appeals to our masculinity, so it didn't take a marketing genius to focus on that. I know, none of us want to believe that we're in...
Yes, chat says the history of marketing is basically the history of psychology. Everything is psychology at the end of the day. That's why your brain is so important. That's why your processing, that's why our trauma is so important. It explains everything we do. It explains so much of our life. That's why people I'm fascinated by epigenetics and all these other things. Like, I'm just fascinated with, this idea of like free will is so fascinating. And then like, oh, I fell for this. Like that, so yeah, like that's why I look at people and I say, like, do I have a really introspective relationship with myself? Am I extrospecting? Am I like self-aware enough? Why do I keep like, being tricked? I'm like, oh, was I tricked? And like, that is, it's really not about being tricked. It's about being at the mercy of your limitations. I went to my parents' house before I came to Europe, and there was Bud Light beer. And Dylan Mulvaney was on it. And I was like, Dylan, ooh, I'm going to drink this beer. And my dad's like, don't drink this beer. And I was like, why? And he goes, because that trans person's on it. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm going to drink it. Like, see, I'm the marketing clientele that drinks the beer because there's a trans woman on it. And my dad is the guy who refuses to open the beer case because there's a trans woman on it. And these are the two, these are forms of marketing. They market to get people like me to buy the beer, which I didn't, by the way, because I don't really drink alcohol. But it was there and I would have drank it because Dylan was on it, because I like her, right? Okay. But then my dad was like, you can't open this case of beer. And I was like, you're not going to let me open a case of beer you already bought? And he goes, Mom's going to return it. And I was like, I'm going to drink this beer. He goes, you're not going to drink this beer. I was like, I'm going to leave. And then I was like, you're being silly. Like, you're being like silly. This is silly. This is a silly conversation. You already bought it. He goes, no, I'm going to return it. It's my money. And I was like, fine, because it's your money and it's not I didn't buy it. But I think this is silly. And like, it was silly. Like, it was a silly conversation. But I am just as susceptible to the marketing as my dad is. The difference is that I think, well, if at least I buy it, it sends a message to these corporations that I want to see more of it. But that's why Pride has become a marketing play for corporations that only back us when it's convenient. Right? That's why, we're paying attention to companies that were, using DEI and now are moving away from DEI policies, because they were only in our pride parades because it was convenient, not because they cared. Because at the end of the day, these corporations care about their dollar bills. Don't get it twisted. And that at the end of the day is why it's so complicated to know, should I support this business because they support me, or am I supporting this business because they mean it? And do they ever mean it is the question. Do they ever mean it? Probably not. That's why we say there are no ethical billionaires. Because what it takes to be a billionaire and the way that the world is set up now basically makes it impossible for you to do it without exploitation.
Influenced by marketing, but good marketing really works. Okay, but that's still just marketing 101. And in the early 70s, the meat industry was facing a really big problem, which was the growing concern among scientists.
Oh, wait. Talking about marketing, I was watching this show yesterday. I was watching, KSI has a show on Netflix that was for the Sidemen, but sold to Netflix, I guess. And I watched season 2 because it just came out, because I was like, what is this? I don't know what this is. It's YouTubers on Netflix. And I was like, oh, this is weird. I clicked on it because Dylan was in it. Dylan, the news guy from TikTok, from South Africa. I was like, oh, wait, I like Dylan. So Page, is that his name? Dylan was on it. Anyways, so many Dylans today. Anyways, So I watched the show because he's in it. And I was like, oh, I want to see him. I want to see him succeed. So I'm watching the show. I'm laughing. It's like pretty funny. Then DDG comes, the guy who was with Hallie. Okay. He's on the show, was exes. He was on the show and he voted Dylan out. And then right away, I was like, I don't want to watch the show anymore. I only watched it because Dylan was in it. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about how the only reason I was going to get through that show was because I had one person that I was interested to see how he did. And that was it. That was the make or break for me as a customer. Now that he's gone, I can't see myself finishing the show. Because, like, what do I care? You know what I mean? But I was fascinated by my own reasoning. I was fascinated that, oh, this mattered to me. So it's interesting being a person that makes people watch. It's interesting that Dylan was the reason I watched as a customer or as a viewer. And then that makes me ask myself, oh, why do I watch other things? Like, what are and then I was watching a cooking show the other day and I was like really rooting for people. And when the person I wasn't rooting for didn't win, I was like, oh, they chose wrong. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, you could feel like a sense of disappointment by the end of the watch, but I still liked the show. But then it made me question if I would recommend it to people. And then I wondered what that was. Would I not recommend a show because the person I was rooting for didn't win? Maybe. Because I realized if they had one, I would have been like, you need to watch this cooking show. Great ending. And then it begs the question of like, you know, that's the stuff that I find fascinating is what I'm trying to say. What makes us recommend things? What makes us move away from things? What makes us engage with things? What makes us share things to our friends and family? Like Instagram said, the best way to get big on Instagram is to get people to share your reels. So then people make reels and it's like, what are the posts I share with my friends? I share a lot of memes. Most of my friends and I share memes. And memes, that's why meme channels became like insane because people love to share jokes. They love to share laughter. They love to share like, oh my God, am I right? Political statements through memes. Like that's what's so interesting about people. Anyways, humans, bro. It really is just like how this thing works.
Scientists about the health aspects of meat, which was getting out to consumers. The National Livestock and Meat Board, as it was called, needed a big innovation like happened with Miller Lite and Lunchables. But what? A big problem was the Senate Committee on Nutrition was expanding its mission. It had only addressed undernutrition before then, but now it was going to tackle overnutrition. And one of its central recommendations was to eat less meat. The Beef Board pushed back hard, as you would expect, but there was just too much scientific consensus and they couldn't get anywhere with that. So they made a genius move that sounded harmless in the day, which is they got the committee to amend their statement on meat to read, choose meat that will reduce saturated fat intake. There is an old saying in marketing, if you can't beat your competitor on one playing field, change the playing field to one where you can. They changed it from talking about food to talking about food components, fat, protein, and carbohydrate, biochemistry. And that was a marketer's dream because you could say meat is way high in protein. To men, you could say protein is what builds muscle, which is what men want, and meat is where you get the most of it. To women, you could say it's the best way to satiate your hunger and therefore to slim down. One miracle nutrient that speaks to both men and women. You want to bulk up, you want to lose weight, protein will do it. And the real genius is getting consumers to think about food as biochemistry is the best way to sow confusion. That works in your favor if scientists are telling consumers to eat less of what you sell. Something about protein being made of 20 amino acids, some of them essential, cysteine, taurine, and...
That's why you'll hear people say like, oh, this year eggs are in, this year eggs are out, because it's all marketing at the end of the day. Now, there is one corner of research that I try to pay attention to the most, people that are authentically trying to figure it out. If you're genuinely trying to figure it out, I'm more likely to listen to you, but everything else is just lobbyists and marketing. So like eggs being in or out, you know, meat being in or out, X carbs being in or out, you know, all of this is, that's why the carnivore diet is all marketing. The carnivore diet is not about health. That's why some of the people that even push the carnivore diet deeply regret it because they realize like, oh, this was a fad, a health fad. And so again, like I try and I'm so desperate for just real researchers, real people who are genuinely curious about what the actual truth is instead of like all these marketing ploys. But every time someone says that, you can see them falling for the marketing. Conservatives will say that, well, I just want to know what the science is. No, you don't. No, you don't, because you're falling for every fucking marketing like campaign that's thrown at you. No, you don't. And it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, none of us are perfect, but some people really think they're like sticking it to the man while falling for every single marketing campaign that's ever been thrown at them. And that's why I say like self-awareness, you know, they're self-aware that there's a marketing play. They're self-aware, but not extrospective enough to deconstruct their own self-awareness. They know it exists. My parents raised me my whole life to look for marketing, to look for scammers, to see like, oh, see, they say 10% off here, 50% off here, but actually it's cheaper if you do this. My parents taught me when I go to the store, don't fall for sales. Make sure you can compare it to other items because you could get it cheaper. Like my parents taught me so much about looking for scams, but yet here they are falling for every marketing campaign thrown at them within the conservative Trump bubble. What? Including, but not limited to, the carnivore diet. Not my parents, they're not carnivores, but you know what I mean? Like they're, oh, Brittany, don't go off meat. I think you really need the meat. I think the meat is really healthy for you. Watch Jordan Peterson's video on meat. Brittany, listen to your parents. They really know what they're talking about. It's like, thanks, Jordan.
Lysine? Who can understand all that? Probably not even scientists can fully understand it. And what consumer wants to listen to a scientist talk about biochemistry? Then you can use the incredible power of marketing to bring home a very simple message, which is protein is the most important component of food, and meat is the richest source of it. Here's a masterclass on how to sow confusion while selling protein. Just lobby the government to produce a food plate like this. 4 categories of food and 1 of biochemistry. The implication is veggies, grains, and fruit don't have protein. Since protein is synonymous with meat in consumers' minds, it suggests you should have a...
Actually, this is fabulous. I fell for this my whole life until I went down the vegan diet documentary series the bubble. Vegetables, I didn't realize gave you so much fucking protein. I didn't know that. I literally thought protein was fucking separate. This is what blew my brain bubble when I saw I think he's gonna mention it in this video because I kind of checked the video. I didn't watch it all the way, but I checked it. He's gonna mention the documentary, the working out documentary on the strongest, the fittest, whatever it's called. I can't remember the name now. They talked about this. This is what blew my mind when I saw the graph of like, oh, why am I eating meat if it's like the middleman to protein? If vegetables can get me as much, if not more protein, then why I was having the hardest time consuming enough chicken, enough protein to get my protein intake for the day. It is so much easier for me to do it with soy, or so much easier for me to do it with vegetables. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, like I am hitting my protein way easier on a non-meat diet.
Grains and fruit don't have protein. Since protein is synonymous with meat in consumers' minds, it suggests you should have a chunk of meat on your plate for every meal. Genius. The Canadian plate, by contrast, has actual food on it. Perhaps it's coincidence.
Ooh, yummy. Okay.
It's that Canadians consume 40% less meat per capita, while their men live on average 4 years longer than men in the US, and their healthcare costs are roughly half of what ours are.
Whoa.
I don't know. Here's how far we've taken our love affair with protein. The other day in Costco, I noticed protein shakes for kids. I don't know how anyone can understand this ingredient list except for the very last one that falls all the way down below salt, the veggie fruit blend that they tout so highly on the label. I did the math, and that turns out to be about 0% of calories. The various refined sugars seem to be more than half the calories. The first ingredient is cow's milk, so maybe this is a Lunchables-like attempt to revive the ailing dairy.
Ooh, talking about Chessa's doesn't dairy have protein too. Protein powder is made of whey. My mother-in-law got me vegan protein powder. Dark chocolate. And I was like, thank you, girl. She's like, I know you like protein and I know you're vegan. So, you know, even though I'm not plant-based or whatever. And I was like, thank you. And like, she got me vegan protein powder. So like, that's kind of great. And there's a vegan protein powder in my store, like locally. So I know like it's available. But I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And I'm just saying, it's kind of cool how many ways you can get what you need, just if you think about it different.
Dairy industry, now that consumers are becoming aware of the health hazards of drinking milk. That is another episode. Here's the damning thing about food as biochemistry. It has led to a mind-blowing array of confusing diets from 0 fat to 0 carbs and an obsessive focus on biochemical components. And yet the simple
Okay, hold on, let me look at this. As if I understand it. That said, Brittany, I made a tofu teriyaki stir fry yum, and it was yummy, but the tofu was a bit rubbery. Did I cook it wrong, or are there types of tofu that doesn't have this texture? That's a great question. When you say rubbery, I can imagine it. there are different type of tofus, and no tofu is made the same for sure. So I wonder what that is. I usually get a firm tofu if it's available. I find the firmer the better for me personally, because it makes me feel like I'm biting into something. But I wonder what makes rubbery tofu, because that's a good question. Everything can come down to how you cook it. I don't know if that's why I haven't tried making tofu at home, because every time I see people make it out of lentils, it looks rubbery and I'm like, I don't think I can eat that. But I haven't had that problem with my tofu yet. The one of the problems I've had with my tofu is like it's almost too soft, which is why I fry or crunch it up as much as possible, because I want to feel like I'm really like biting into something when I eat it. So if anyone has helpful tips in chat, please share about avoiding rubbery tofu. Some people also take the tofu and put it in the freezer and then take it out, and they say that really helps. Oh, you did get firm tofu. I seared the sides and thought maybe I overcooked it. I don't know if you can overcook tofu. Maybe the texture of tofu's, maybe it's not, you could just not like it. You know what I mean? That's okay, but I don't know. I've never had that problem. Did you squeeze the water out beforehand? Maybe that helps. Or maybe it's the oil. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, so I squeeze my tofu out. I put it in paper towel and I squeeze it out. I wish I had a cheese rag. That's my next goal, is get a cheese rag. So yeah, if there's too much liquid in the tofu, maybe that's a part of the problem. Squeeze it out as much as you can. When I slice it, I also squeeze it out again because there's water in between, and that seems to help. You said I was afraid I was going to break it. Don't be afraid you're going to break it, because even if you do, like, you know what I mean? But you can sometimes I slice them and then I put them on the paper towel and I put another paper towel on top and I kind of push down on them. And I find that helps a lot to drain the water. It's not universally necessary, but it is mostly recommended by most people to squeeze out the water. You know, get a tofu press, girl, we gonna work on it. Trust me.
Guide that the Seventh-day Adventists wrote in 1863, one simple sentence that you remember after you read it once that everyone can understand, has propelled their 20 million members to be the healthiest people in the world, no matter where they live. Eat fruit, veggies, beans, whole grains, and nuts in as close to the natural state as possible. And that diet for 150 years has crushed every other diet scientists and nutritionists have been able to come up with using biochemistry. So why men and meat in particular? Well, the YouTube views are saying a lot of men are getting their nutritional advice from Joe Rogan. The Atlantic magazine did an in-depth story on why he's so successful, and the not so surprising conclusion is he understands men better than almost anyone. See what the carnivore guys are doing for masculine imagery? And they're using words like shredded. Whole plants don't have a marketing budget like meat does, but if they did, I wonder what their ads would look like. Do you want the ripped body of a beast? Then bypass the middleman and get your body fuel the way these beasts do. From the source. Eating used protein from a cow who got it from a plant is like driving a used car when you could have a new one. When I was a teen and I used to caddy for Jack LaLanne, he used to tell us if it came from a cow or a pig, don't eat it. After a while, you won't miss it. And I think, yeah, right, I won't miss it. It's delicious. What are you talking about? I'll always miss it if I give it up. But studies show he was right. Our taste buds change, and after a while, it's amazing, but we don't miss it. But here's what I think is the bigger factor and why.
Oh, and you know what else I do with my tofu? Is sometimes I put it in a salt bath. So you put the tofu in soaking water with salt, and apparently the water tends to move towards and out towards the salt. And then I pad dry the tofu. I leave it in there for like 10, 15 minutes. And then if I have the patience, and then I squeeze it out on top of a paper towel, and it does seem to get more of the water out. There's a science to it. I watched a video on it, but I don't know how to explain it to you in a way that sounds smart. So
I think the Game Changers movie had the right idea.
Ooh, Game Changers. That's what it is. I think the Game Changers was oh my God, the Game Changers made me feel so good as a girl who's trying to get more in tune with her body, that's doing exercises every day, that's like, trying to figure out, I'm working on my flexibility, I'm working on my strength, I'm working on my core. And I was really moved by the Game Changers documentary.
They showed us commercials. Steak. That's what a man eats. Selling that idea that real men eat meat. Serious man food. But you got to understand, that's marketing. That's not based on reality.
No matter how clear the science.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is vegetarian. So he's featured in the Game Changers documentary. He said he used to eat like 50 eggs a day and was eating all of this meat, like 200 grams of meat a day, of protein a day. And now he gets it all from a vegetarian diet. He said his heart is better, his cholesterol is better, his body is better. Because listen, I heard, this is what I learned, because I love I used to exist in the boy bubble, the working out boy bubble. I've moved away from it and focused mostly on femme people or queer people who do working out now. But the straight male bubble was like protein, protein, protein. But they were also showing high results of kidney stones. And as a girl who grew up with a gym dad, my dad has a gym at his house. He loves working out. He's very in shape. My dad's muscles are incredible. He's also had kidney stones over the years. And I always wondered, why do you get so many kidney stones? And there's a big correlation, apparently, between high unnecessary protein diets through meat and kidney stones. And all these kidney dads aren't eating enough vegetables or grains or fiber because they're not getting enough of it. And so I'm looking at like the men in my life and the men around me, and I'm thinking, yeah, like you look good, but you're also like kind of sick. And then when you get old enough, all their doctors are telling them like, you need to eat less red meat. Like you're eating too much red meat. You know, they're literally telling us. That's why it's so frustrating to see Jordan Peterson get over here, get on the internet and talk about how, red meat, carnivore diet, all this stuff. And then I don't know why we're not paying attention to like whether or not these people even look healthy. Jordan Peterson literally looks sick all the time. So I don't know if that's what you want as health, but there is sort of like, you have to pay attention to steroid use, which by the way is so prevalent in these boy bubbles. And then on top of that, the way they push those steroids is so normalized that guys who are natty are like, man, I don't even know if I'm allowed to be here anymore. Okay. So it's not even from the meat intake. You're not even showing these results because of the meat you eat. It's because of the steroids you're taking. And so again, we have to pay attention to like, what is the actual benefit to feeling good about myself if it's also making me sick? I don't get it.
Is it has to be cool and masculine for most men to embrace it. That's the grand key to what we men want. And the meat marketers with the huge budgets know it better than anyone.
Hey, I got you guys protein shakes.
Awesome, I love protein.
Oh, I know you love protein. I love protein too.
Yeah, protein rocks. So you guys talk about protein? I love protein. I love protein too.
We know you love protein. Protein rocks.
Awesome. Protein rocks.
Protein.
Protein.
Should we tell them about these?
Absolutely not.
Now there's a tastier way to get some protein. With tender grilled chicken, corn salsa, and guacamole, Taco Bell's new Power Protein menu is packed with flavor.
Somebody get this man some protein!
Until eating plants can become more cool and masculine, beef is what's for dinner. Thank you so much for watching. We're starting to get...
That was so funny though. I do those commercials.
Noticed a little bit by people.
They crack me up, bro. I'm not going to play. I think that commercials are so funny. Protein. Someone get this man protein. My partner really is like, man, you are a man. The way you laugh at man jokes, I love a boy joke. I just love male humor sometimes. Not all of it, but that kind of boy humor makes me laugh, Oh, yeah, that's so funny. Chet says, wasn't there a carnivore YouTuber that was exposed for using steroids? Yeah. What's his name? Primal guy. He said he was on the Logan Paul podcast, and when they asked him if you're natty or not, Liver King, thank you. He didn't know how to answer, so he felt pressured. So he said, actually, I'm natty, which was a lie. And Derek from More Plates, More Dates, Derek had a realization that this guy had emailed him a while ago about all the steroid use he was doing. So Derek was the one who outed him. Talk about boy bubble lore. So Derek outs Liver King, and Liver King has to own up to it. And then his brand went down because the brand was, you can be like me, natural. That's why I say like a lot of the bodybuilding bubbles, steroids are like required to compete. That's why when you're natty and you compete, it's like, whoa, you're like in the minority. So just remember that. When you're a natural bodybuilder, you're in a different category now than the not natural. And like you are sort of becoming what is perceived as the minority, whether it's true or not. It definitely like is becoming more expected for people to be on steroids, and it ages you. It's not good for your health long term. A lot of these men are dying from it. There's just like so many disadvantages from a health perspective, the pressure men feel to perform gender. And this is why ultimately this is about performing gender through marketing. So every time a man says, like, I don't believe in gender, trans people are weird, I'm just a man, this is natural, this is my evolutionary biology, you are performing based off of marketers. You are performing based off social pressure. You are falling for the same issues that everyone else is. We are struggling to find a positive symbiotic relationship with our joy because we are seeking validation and approval from other people in this pursuit of something that we used to love. And it's just there. I was watching Jesse James West, and him and his girl, soon to be wife, they have a really cute relationship, love them. They were talking about how grumpy he gets before competition because he has to basically starve himself. They have to dehydrate themselves. They basically have to starve themselves. You're always hungry before a bodybuilding competition. And Jesse is natural, as far as I know, as of the last time I checked in on his channel. So Jesse's like, yeah, like I become a worse person just to compete in this bubble in which I'm supposed to be, dehydrated and defined in my muscles. And like, he even like says is a deterrent almost, And then there was, what's his name? Oh, I can't remember his name now. Who the most famous, the guy with the mustache, the big muscles guy, he just retired because he had a time limit on his steroid use, which the healthiest way to go about it, if you're going to use steroids, is to put a time limit on when you're going to get off them. Because, past a certain age, past a certain usage, like the decline of your health is it's inevitable. So there's some relationship we can have. Same with smoking or anything else. Look, if you're going to hurt your body, I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not going to make that prescription. I just want you to be aware that you're doing it, and you might not be doing it for the quote right reasons, And I think there are ways to accept that this maybe is gonna damage my hips, or like, if you dance ballet, you're probably gonna need hip surgery by 50, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't be a ballet dancer, right? If I'm saying that you should be aware of it and not be surprised, but also be ready. And my care and compassion is with you. Sports people who do athletics, people who put pressure on their bodies, there will be a disadvantage. Heck, even if you sit at a computer all day, you have to really pay attention to your body. Like, we are becoming like little trolls on the internet. We have to pay attention to our bodies. Everything we do can have a disadvantage or an advantage, right? So again, gender is performative. And the man bubble is like the greatest at performing it while being in denial that they're doing it because they want to believe it's somehow inherent to who they were, even though it's something they had to learn from others. And so it's, it is what it is. What are you going to do? Okay, let's take a 2-second break. We'll come back. We'll get into the next segment. Dun, 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 dun. All right. So this next video I have for us is a YouTuber that I found recently. No, a TikToker that I found recently called The Necessary Conversation. I don't know if you guys have seen him, but he basically has really uncomfortable conversations with his MAGA family. I've only seen a few, But the combination of the comments and his parents' comments are kind of what's fascinating to me. So let's bubble hop into this man's life, this man's family, this man's dynamics. Let's also pay attention to the fact that they're willing to post these videos on the internet. Very interesting decisions were made. And then let's pay attention to the way they have the conversations. And let's ask ourselves the question about discernment in relation to meeting people where they're at and how to pick and choose how we invest in people. And this idea, because this is a comment I see a lot on his channel, is your parents were never good people. You just think they were. But I think that we know human beings are both. They're good and they're bad. That people are rarely all bad. And that's why we make excuses for people. It's why we try to meet people where they are. It's why we believe in restorative justice. It's why we believe that people aren't just their actions. They could be so much more. It's why we believe and have hope for a future that will change. So let's start off with this video. This one's about Mahmoud Khalil, who's still under arrest, and hopefully we'll see justice served there with him getting out. But let's see how the conversation goes with this topic.
Khalil was arrested. He had a green card, but he's arrested, and they're threatening to deport him.
They should hook his balls up to a car battery.
Get him out of there.
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Like, do you believe in free speech? Do you believe in free speech?
I believe
Not
in
from
loving.
that.
He has a green card.
Goodbye.
Need to turn it red and send his ass wherever he
All
comes
those
from.
people protesting at universities, get them out of here. Goodbye.
Why?
Because they're protesting against our America.
So all of the people during the Vietnam War, when they were protesting the war, get them out of here?
Damn right.
Kent State. Boom, boom, boom.
You damn right.
Mom, you're advocating.
Okay, like very interesting energy. Now, this is from their long podcast. So these are their TikToks. There are longer podcasts, but I think the TikToks do justice to the way the conversations are had. And I think this is what's so interesting because growing up conservative, I heard my whole life, like, Betsy, you don't want to live in North Korea or Russia, do you? Where like they penalize you for the way you say things. You don't live in Iraq where you don't have free speech and you can't say stuff, right? And that's why it's ironic that now they're voting for MAGA, which is limiting expression and free speech and arresting people for saying the wrong thing, right?
For murdering students?
No, get them out of here. Deport them back to the country that they love.
They were protesting, didn't break up, got their ass shot.
I just said at Kent State when they were protesting, the National Guard came in and started the shooting.
Killed students.
Yes.
Get them out of here.
Mom, you're for murdering students.
Yes.
Chad, don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth.
Have you guys ever protested? Have you ever been to a protest?
No.
No, I know you have. We've seen
We
it.
love our country.
Mahmoud Khalil was arrested.
So that was the first energy. Here's the one that I saw initially.
When is it appropriate to play the cancer card? Because you very much did say to me, don't play the cancer card when I was talking about myself having cancer and Trump cutting cancer research funding.
But you were using your cancer in regard to the kid, and it was like opposite. You were doing opposite. I don't even know how to explain it. I probably shouldn't have said that. I probably shouldn't have. Your cancer was not only yours, it was all of ours. And you know that.
So you're playing my cancer card now.
It affected all of us.
Of course.
In regard to, I'm not, who was on medicine, who wasn't, okay? That's where I'm going.
I think I was on medicine.
I think that was a rude question, whoever said that anyway.
Okay. So you're the victim on this one.
They don't know our family again. I can go through all this, but I won't. They don't know our family. They don't know how I really feel.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying about it.
So there is no appropriate time to play the cancer card. Is that your final conclusion?
Yep. Done. Out.
When is it appropriate?
Okay.
Dad, who started the war in Ukraine?
Zelensky started the war so that he could clean up.
Okay. How did he start it, Dad? I'm curious what you think. What was the first action he took to start the war?
He went and got all those missiles and shit from the United States of America and prompted Moscow to defend itself.
By invading his country.
No, he had already started the invasion behind the curtain.
He started the invasion of his own country?
Yes. He doesn't give a shit about
Wait a minute. How you're saying Zelensky somehow conscripted Russian troops to invade
No, he
his
didn't
country?
conscript them. He set up the stage for Moscow to have to take action in order to stop him from. Hell, he was bombing the shit out of Moscow.
Okay.
Where
I'm
in
very
the hell
conf-
do you get your news?
Where do you get yours? And I know the answer. It's Newsmax. Dad?
Okay, right? I am fascinating. Okay. Okay.
Dad, is Amy Coney Barrett a DEI hire?
No.
What?
No.
What?
No.
She was elected.
No, that's not right. That's not what happens with Supreme Court justices.
I just proves we don't agree with all our people.
She's the conservative one with all the kids, right? Like that's the one that she is.
All the time. You do.
Who are my people?
You got that crazy black woman that they put in the Supreme Court. That's one of yours.
Okay. So you support Amy Coney Barrett's decision then to go against Trump.
Sure.
So you're going against Trump now?
No. It's so frivolous, it's not even worth bringing up. I don't even know why it's a point.
Because this is the first thing that Trump has done that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and he got shut down by a person he appointed on the Supreme Court.
Being a $200 billion deal, he wouldn't have got shut down.
Okay, so you think it's a monetary thing, and Amy Coney Barrett was like, well, f it, this is only $2 billion.
Pretty much.
Dad, is Amy Coney Barrett a DEI hire?
Okay. I'm just gonna move through these that I think they're interesting. Like,
Dad, do you think any of these people that Trump is laying off voted for Trump?
Sure they did.
Yes.
And do you think they're getting what they voted for?
Yes, they're getting what they voted for, but they're too stupid to know what it was.
Do these people who are getting fired then in your mind deserve to be fired?
Yes,
Because they're stupid.
because they have leached off of me for 50 years, and I'm sick of it.
But they helped Trump win.
Fine. Good for them.
And so the first thing that happens in Trump's America after they voted for him is he fires them. He ruins their lives.
He fires 10% of the dead weight.
And you're cool with that.
I'm all for it.
Everybody's
In fact, I'd chop off 20.
everybody's squealing because they are cutting the fat.
You are just whining.
Hang on a minute, though. I'm all for government efficiency. It is obviously a broken system. I'm all for making it better. Mom, what do you think about these people who were fired that voted for Trump? Do you have any sympathy for them as fellow Trump supporters?
Yes, I do. They're in a bad situation where now they have to go find another job.
Okay, so Trump clearly has shown that he doesn't give a shit if you voted for him or not. He will ruin your life. Where do you think that ends? Is it just with these people he's laying off? Is he going to start ruining other Trump voter lives?
That's crazy that you're even saying that. Now, it's funny that the other presidents ahead of him, Biden cut jobs, so did Obama, but nobody was whining the way they are, the way you guys are.
Dad.
Isn't this I'm fascinated here. I'm gonna copy the link address and put it in the chat so you guys can check this person out. Isn't this such an interesting little bubble? I will say it's weird to compare them to my family because my family is MAGA as well. But they're different. Like they feel different to me, but they can say similar things, but not in the way that they feel different. And I'm gonna say it this way because I think you guys will get it. But like, this is how white people talk about Trump. But I have the immigrant background. And immigrants who talk about Trump, it's different. You remember the Hispanic woman I showed on my podcast about it being hard to be a good person? That's more like what my family sounds like. Like my family's like, I came here legally. I did it the right way. You should do it the right way. It's that kind of stuff where my family feels like it's just it's a different reason to vote for Trump. They want the credit of doing it the right way because they feel like they did it the right way, but they didn't do it the right way. Their parents did. Like my parents didn't do anything the right way. They were too young to have done it the right way when they came to America. They were beholden to their parents. Like at the end of the day, their parents' lawyers did it the right way. You know, what does the right way even mean? Like, if my parents went back and found out that in any way they did it wrong, would they go back to Iraq to start over? No. But that's what they're asking these people to do from other countries. They're saying you should go back even if you've been here for 50 years. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think that my parents would think they should go back to Iraq if they found out their parents did the paperwork wrong. But I bet you could find a way that someone did something wrong. And that's what it is at the end of the day. And they can't imagine it because they think these parents who are bringing their kids over are like malicious, versus I just think people do things that are risk taking. Like for my partner and I, we're not looking to risk take in this way. It's too scary for us. We're too scared to break laws like that because it doesn't make sense for us. But for other people, like their willingness to engage in this idea might be similar to my willingness to do illegal drugs that are like a federal offense, right? Like they're felony drugs, right? Like smoking weed before it was legal, or DMT, or even like, whatever it is, maybe taking the risk there is like in my head a necessary, like an okay consequence. But I'm very cautious about doing paperwork incorrectly. I think that's why it gives me so much anxiety, is like, I don't want to do it wrong. But I think also I feel great advocacy towards like legalizing drugs. So if I was ever sent to jail for it, I would just be like, okay, opportunity to advocate for drugs. But then, I'm so terrified of paperwork. I'm like, how would I even advocate for immigration stuff? Because that's not my special interest. That's not my focus. But then if put into that situation, now you would become that person. And advocacy is always where I go to. Advocacy is always where I end up. If anything bad happens to anybody, it's like, now we must advocate. So, it's interesting, I think, when I'm seeing like other people's families have relationships like this, Yeah. Okay, let's watch a few more. Okay, let's see.
The families of the daughters that were killed by illegals couldn't stand up for that. The guy that took the bullet for Trump couldn't stand up for that, for his widow. That is evil. That is mean people. That is not right. That's what our Democrats are.
This is exactly what I was talking about at the beginning of this episode. You are fighting with your own children. Listen, Dad, just listen for a second.
Let him
talk.
talk.
I got one. It's
let
one
him
line.
talk.
It's one line. The Democrats are worse than any Russian.
Okay. You are fighting with us over whether or not Democrats stood up and clapped for a person we don't know at all, instead of understanding that there are billionaires, the richest people in the world, are currently controlling the American government to rob you blind. They're talking about taking your Social Security.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
We'll see.
They're talking about privatizing everything.
Is that why mine's gotten bigger since you started running your mouth?
It gets bigger every year, Dad. That's how Social Security works.
The families of the daughters that were killed by illegals couldn't stand up for that.
Okay. The guy that took the bullet for Trump. That's not what happened. He didn't take the bullet for Trump. Like, he didn't stand in front of Trump and be like, he was behind Trump. The bullet missed and hit him and killed him. He didn't take the bullet for Trump. What is this like narrative? Oh yeah, he took the bullet. That's not what happened, girl. Okay, but interesting narrative. Okay.
Mother Europe hasn't done shit in this world since I've been alive.
Okay.
They're worthless as tits on a board pit.
Here we go. Tits on a board.
So, Dad, do you think that all of Europe should be destroyed?
It doesn't matter to me. I wouldn't care if Russia took them all over.
Do you think it's important for us to have allies in Europe as a country?
No. 0, 0, 0. Mother Europe hasn't done shit in this world since I've been alive.
This idea is so fascinating as a person who now like lives in Europe, of course. It is kind of scary in a sense because, you have to ask yourself these questions like, if America and Europe become enemies and they're not allies and they can't rely on each other, then immigration becomes an issue, right? In a big way. Because one of the perks of, as an American moving to Europe, is there's an allyship there. There's like a feeling of we're we might have issues with each other, but like we chillin'. But now, if it comes down to it, what if it becomes like they revoke visas for Americans living in Europe out of retaliation for Trump? Like, I would have to go back to America, and then what are the chances I can immigrate my partner to America with the way that Trump's doing things? You know what I mean? So now it becomes, immigration becomes Brittany's special interest. Because, it's like, you know what I mean? It's all very exhausting. And again, like, my partner and I have had countless conversations about it. We're doing our best to do everything correctly and to make sure that we are prepared emotionally for whatever may happen, even if it means being separated for many years. It happens. Like, it happens to a lot of people. It's not without possibility. In the same way that there were some Canadians getting stopped at the border and some people having issues, to them, it wasn't even a possibility. And the fact that it happened, they were like, if I even thought that this was going to happen to me, I wouldn't have come. I wouldn't have done this. I didn't know the U.S. was becoming this particular, like this hateful, that, you're going to one of your closest allies and being like, what are you doing? And that's why I'm so confused about our relationship with Mexico. How are Mexico and Canada and us? How are we not like the bestest of friends? How are we not making it work between us? We are literally neighbors. For the same reason that it might be hard to make it work with your neighbor. The same reason it might be hard to imagine that these parents are in any way good, right? So like, the comment sections of these TikToks are very much like, these are evil people. These people lack empathy. You shouldn't love these people. I think what's important is for us to recognize when a person has made a choice and they're not going to change their mind. Like, my parents, again, don't sound exactly like this, but they are a variation of, we're the immigrants who did it correctly. They're that bubble. I don't have these conversations with them because this is how it goes every time, and it's exhausting. And eventually I'm out of spoons, and eventually I'm like, hey, I love you. I don't want to talk about this. And you know what they do? They go, oh, these liberals, they can never have the conversation. They always have to exit the conversation. My brothers will say, ugh, liberals, you guys always preach about how you can have the conversations, but you always pussy out on the conversations. Okay. Like, and so again, we'll sit here and we'll talk about like people getting triggered, or we'll talk about mental health, and we'll say, man, you're so weak. But the same thing would happen to them if they had the same amount of people ganging up on them. Because when you're the one leftist in the community or the one liberal, it's like 10 against 1. But if they were the conservative and it was like 10 against them, it would be very different. And they would probably break down too, right? Chet says, how have you not cut off contact just from exhaustion? Because open with boundaries is a really good way to do it. Look, I cannot cut these people off in the same way that I can't cut my right arm off. I cannot cut my own arm off. They are a part of me. And they will always be a part of me. But what I can do is have a really strong boundary setting relationship with them. And we're doing pretty good. It's actually going incredibly well. We've shown mutual respect. We've been very giving each other space. We've been very cordial when we have spoken. We've been very clear not to talk about politics, not to send me stuff, not to send each other stuff. Like, we've put down boundaries, and it's going really well. It's sad in some ways, because in order to have these strong boundaries, I went from talking to my parents every day to it's been a bit. It's been a long time. And they're probably not going to get a phone call for a long time. And they're probably going to miss out on pretty big moments in my life. And they're probably not going to be as involved, because every time I try to involve them, they have to use their political spin to add in a conversation. When I reached out to them about my health stuff, right away with the misinformation and propaganda. And so if they're going to create, until they realize they're doing it, they are creating an inability for me to share my life with them. Because if I share my life with them, it becomes an opportunity for them to evangelize, or an opportunity for them to say, you got to listen to my doctors, not your doctors, or their opportunity to like give an opinion, if that's not the relationship I'm looking for. And so I like I said to them, like, I love you, right? I love you. And thank you for giving me space and respecting my boundaries. It really means a lot to me. I'll talk to you at a different time. And and we're doing pretty good. Eventually, we'll probably talk again when the time comes up. But I think what's important is they understand that the consequence of you being unwilling to change is that you will be left behind. And that's no one's fault. That's just a choice you're making. And if that's where you want to be, then I love you and I wish you the absolute best. Even if I never talk to you ever again in my whole life, know that I love you. But I can't stay behind with you. I have got to move forward with my life. This is why I say I use like the idea of us getting on a ship and sailing away. You're either on the ship or you're not, but I'm not going to wait for you to get on the ship. The ship is leaving at 5 p.m. You're either there or you're not, like a cruise line. Okay? You're either there or you're not. And with peace and love. Right? And I think we've all accepted it. I think my parents have accepted it. I think we've all accepted it in the way that we can. That like, you're not going to come with me. Even though I love them. Even though they're great people in different ways. I'm just not there anymore, right? Chat says, is that something that you've told them or just based off of boundaries? No, the conversations happen differently. They don't happen as cohesively. They usually happen over spans of time. So for like many months leading up to the election. So this was back in November, or that it was happening. So these things happened over many conversations leading up and just after the election. So months ago when things were leading up and everything was coming to a head, and then Trump won, it became tiny conversations that happened over time. Them sending me health articles about RFK Jr., them sending me stuff, or me telling them like, hey, I think I might have this medical problem, and them saying, oh, don't trust your doctors, these things are made up. Or me saying, hey, I'm thinking about going vegetarian. That was the last time I called my mom. The last time I talked to my mom was just before I did the vegetarian thing. So almost 2 months ago was when I talked to my mom and I said, hey, I need a recipe for this dolma. And she's like, I think you really need meat in your diet. Please don't do this. Please don't do this. You know, my parents don't ask, hey, why are you doing this? They just go, don't do this. My parents don't say why. My parents lack a curiosity of why their kid would do something. And that's a fault of theirs that they have to contend with. But it's not my job to do that emotional labor for them. And hopefully they get there. I definitely have seen a lot of improvement over the years with my parents. I have seen them change. I have seen them become more compassionate. But like I said, you know, you can't just explain it to them and they switch overnight. It has to be a thing they truly want to discover, a thing they truly want to explore. You know? So I love them and I wish them the best, and I know they're going to continue growing as people. It's just the pace is a little too slow. So I'll talk to you maybe later. Love you. With all of my being, I love you. But, you know, and that's painful. There is a painful part to it. There's a painful part to like missing people. But then when you reach out to them again, it's not the fantasy of the nostalgia of missing them. It's the reminder that they're going to shove their bullshit down your throat. And if you tried to do it back to them, they would call you like a horrible person. And so that nostalgia I have over my good family memories, those are what I remember. But I also recognize like they don't exist anymore. They don't exist in the same way. And they can't exist if we in many ways can't be ourselves with each other to an extent. You know? Like I watch movies with families and I'm always like, oh, when I watch Lilo and Stitch, I cry like a baby. You know, I love family stories, but at the end of the day, even people you love so deeply and profoundly, it doesn't mean you have to do life with them. It just means that was the part of life you did with them. I did a lot of my life with my family, and I would love to continue doing more of it with them, but not at the expense of my joy, my happiness, and my mental health. But not because they're bad people, but because humans are always doing bad. And until they work on being less bad, they can't come over. And that's my way of tough love. You want to talk about tough love? Conservatives love tough love. Here's some tough love for you. You can't come over. Because when you come over into my space, my safe space, you run the risk of corrupting it with your bigotry. I love you. You can't come over. You can come over when you've deconstructed. You want to talk about tough fucking love? I love you. Can't come over. It's not an emergency. Okay? You can't. But I love you. And when you are in an emergency, I can come to you. But you can't come here. And when I'm in an emergency, you can't come either. Because I have a family here that will be with me, whether I'm in an emergency or not, who when I'm with them, they see me. So I don't need you in an emergency anymore. I have a new family. And this new family shows up no matter what the situation is without needing to make it about them. And that's painful. And that's what people need to understand. I love you, but you can't love me in the way I need. So you're no longer the person I go to. Even if I know my parents will be there in some aspect, because they will. They're so sweet. My sister sent me a little video the other day, of my parents showing up to her place to congratulate her and like give her balloons and like show up in her apartment because they have a key. And I was like, that's so sweet. Like they showed up, they're like on the camera waving at her, and they like surprised her by giving her some stuff in the house, a balloon, congratulations, whatever. And my sister's like, isn't that so sweet? It is so sweet. My parents are lovely people. They're great gift givers. They go out of their way for their kids. But they can't always meet every need of their child. We're too individualistic at the end of the day, and our values are too different. So I think, again, you can profoundly love people, but I think you can show love incorrectly. And I think I'm trying my best to show love correctly, even if I'll make mistakes along the way, you know? Yeah. Okay, now let's go back to his family, because I think his family is very interesting, because you can see like the kids are trying to get their parents to see, right? Okay, let's talk about transgender mice.
Dad, is the government paying for transgender mice?
I think it did. I don't think it will anymore.
So you do believe that we were literally paying government tax money to some scientists to turn mice transgender?
Yes.
No.
Dad, let me ask you this.
It's already been clarified online. That's not what it was.
Yeah, of course, it's been clarified by people like you.
Dad, what is a transgender mouse?
I'm guessing it's a mouse that they made a man out of, and it was a girl, or they took a girl mouse or male mouse, made it into a girl.
No, Donald Trump is just stupid. He said something that's not real. It's transgenic. It has to do with DNA.
Joe Biden dished out money to any and all on his last few weeks so that he could just drain our tank.
That's not real.
Because Joe Biden hates America.
Right. Should transgender mice, Dad, be allowed in the military?
No, not even the mouse military.
Dad, is the government?
So funny. Okay.
Mom, do you think our government should observe Black History Month or Pride Month or any of these other months mentioned?
They're just on hold. They're frozen.
Okay, but February is happening now.
Right. So they're on hold.
But do you think our government should observe these?
No.
Okay, Dad doesn't. Mom, do you?
Not government.
Why?
Why should they?
Because it's America and we recognize these. Our government established these things.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I want white Adolf Hitler month. Where's my month?
You want white Adolf Hitler month?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, we learn about World War II in world history.
No, you don't, because you don't get world history anymore.
In your mind, Black History Month is equivalent to white Adolf Hitler month.
Yeah.
You understand Adolf Hitler is widely regarded as one of the most monstrous human beings to have ever existed.
Yeah.
He ushered in the slaughter of millions of people.
6 million.
There you go.
And you believe that should be celebrated in the same way Black History Month is.
If you're going to celebrate, I didn't say it should be celebrated. I said, if you're going to celebrate Black History Month, you have to celebrate White Nazi Month.
Why?
Okay, well, if you celebrate heterosexual marriage, we should celebrate gay marriage. Oh, boom! Mic drop. You know what I mean? Like, they don't get it. Like, people don't get it because they don't know the different. Like, this is what I say. Like, most of the world is twos in bubbles where like this is the cap of their belief. They are capped out. Everyone gets capped out. But that's why I say like it's never ending learning stuff. But you see how clear the two bubbles are? Now the question is, are you in a two bubble? Do you hold beliefs that are similar to these but sound better? Because I used to believe, because I was limited in my I used to believe there was an end. There was an end to thought. And then I was like, what if we go beyond that? Like, what if there's more? And then as I like popped open the bubbles, I was like, oh, like there's so much more. There's so much more to be had. And again, I say this as, because I think again, there's no such thing as right policy that's good. There's no such thing as conservative policy that's good. There's nothing good about the Republicans. There are plenty of problems with the Democrats, and the progressives are better. I'm fully on board, right? But even the progressives stop with their ability to introspect because the progressive bubble exists within the two narrative. So you exist outside of politics to me. You exist outside of politics. So when people say to me, especially progressives, like, but Brittany, everything is politics. I know, Habibi, I know, girl. I know. And yet you're wrong because everything is not political. We make it political because we are not curious and open-minded, and we're always retaliating. We're always in reaction to. Be political in reaction to. But when you go home, know that you exist outside of these constructs. I want you to create a safe space at home. I want your home to be a place where you don't have to be political about your existence. Don't invite people into your home that make your existence political. This is why you can't come over. Because if you come over and you make my existence political, if I invite you into my home and you spend your time with me, telling me and asking me, well, have you thought about like not being gay? You can't come over. Because this is not the space where we debate my existence. You can debate me at work when I'm on stream. You cannot come to my house and have conversations like that with me. This is my house. There's these, my best friend's parents are very liberal. They're Democrats. And they operate in a way that I've never lived in a bubble that operates, and there's good and bad to it. We're like, they don't talk about stuff. If somebody says to you, I'm gay, you don't then say, have you ever thought about not being gay? If somebody says to them, oh, I'm vegetarian, they don't then say, have you ever thought about eating meat? They just go, oh, thank you for sharing. Because they're like, it's not, when people tell you stuff, it is not then your job to argue with those people. But there is this conservative bubble I was raised in where they feel like, ooh, I got to say something. And they'll say, see, like progressives, they'll say something if they feel like I got to battle with you right now. Liberals won't. They'll be like, let's just make nice. And then conservatives will be like, I got to say something. Okay. Conservatives saying something is about being right. Democrats not saying anything because they don't want to move the piece is like playing nice, which progressive saying something is like, oh, I see a harm. I got to say something in a different capacity. I'm more, if the progressives wants to say something, it's probably on behalf of a marginalized community. The Republicans are doing it because they think you're wrong and they want you to be right, like them, but it's like in a regressive way. And again, the liberals are doing the, ooh, let's play nice and let's not, like, it's not our business. And in some ways, that's right. It's not your business. So in some ways, that's good. Don't say anything. But in some ways, maybe there's an opportunity to say something and we need discernment to know when to say something. And conservatives ain't got that. Conservatives don't have the discernment of when to say something. And that's the problem. That's what pisses me off. Like, this is not the time for you to say something. This is the time for you to listen. But then they give me the same arguments that somebody else would give is like, I have to say something. I feel like this is so wrong and I have to say something. Maybe you should ask yourself why you feel like it's your place to say something. Because maybe it's not, or maybe it is. Maybe the liberal who's bound to not say something, maybe they need to say something. Maybe the progressive's right. You should say something. But maybe the conservative needs to ask themselves, is this the time to say something? Maybe it's not, Discord shared, it's so hard to navigate these boundaries when you marry into a conservative family. I'm just grateful to know that my partner has the same values as me and has my back when tough conversations come up. Girl, let me tell you, it is so nice marrying into a liberal family. Ooh, it is so nice. It feels so good. It feels so good marrying into a family where they support us, they elevate us, they don't, I told you, I asked my mother-in-law, how do you feel about the fact that we're not having kids? And she said, why should I feel a way about it? She goes, as long as you're happy, I'm happy for you. Like, why should I feel a way about it? And I said, well, you're allowed to feel a way about it if you want grandkids. And she goes, if you had a kid, I would have loved you and I would have loved the kid. If you didn't have a kid, I love you and that's okay too. Right? It's very like, there's no obligation from them. I'm not obligated to have a kid. Versus with my parents, they don't bring it up and we don't talk about it anymore because I've made it really clear. But they would feel like, well, maybe if something changed, you'd want a kid again. Well, maybe we can help you change something in your life so you can have a kid. And I'm like, no, I already told you, I'm good. I'm like, I'm not having a kid, you know? Again, I still haven't had the surgery, so there's a chance I could get pregnant and maybe I'm not legally allowed to have an abortion. All of a sudden I have to have a kid. But this wouldn't be because I chose this path. It would be because it happened to me somehow, right? Like my birth control failed, the pregnancy at home test failed, or I was assaulted and I didn't get tested on time. I missed the window. Like, yes, there's a chance I could have a baby because of a horrible circumstance happening to me. But since I've made a plan, since I have birth control, since we, use multiple forms of contraceptives, because we pee on a stick. Like I pee on a stick, girl. I always have birth control or pee sticks in my house. I always have pregnancy tests because we do what's necessary to make sure if we're pregnant, we catch it fast. It feels really weird to then end up with a baby. Like we're doing too many preventative things. Like we're on purpose being preventative. On purpose until we can get in line to get the surgeries because there's a line. You know what I mean? So the idea is like how people react to your information tells you about them in a sense. And that's why I ask people on a date, how do you feel about trans kids? Because I'm going to need you to fight for those kids. The reason this is a make or break for me is because if we have children that are trans, you have to fight for those children against your family and the world and everybody else. You have to protect those kids. And if I'm with somebody that's going to give in to their conservative family, that's going to say, well, my mom, she doesn't really believe in trans kids. And like, it's going to be really hard to raise trans kids with my mom. Fuck your mom. Your mom's going to die, bitch. And our kid's going to live. Our kid deserves a better life than your mother. If your mother is a transphobe, my kid deserves a better life than her. Because my kid is going through it. My kid's a kid. So I'm going to need you to tell your mom to fuck off with peace and love so we can focus on our kids. And that's the thing that's really hard. That's the thing that's hard, Okay, let's see. Chat, and then we'll go back to his family. Let's see. Do you talk to your parents about how open your partner's parents are? When it comes up, sure. Like, when I first moved to Croatia, my mom was really happy because it's a Catholic country and they're pretty conservative. And she was like, oh, this is great. You're going to become Catholic. It's going to be beautiful for you. And when she realized I married into a family that wasn't Catholic or practicing and was pretty anti the Catholic Church, she was like, oh no. And then she was worried and she's like, oh my God, like you've married into like the worst, kind of situation where like God puts you in the heart of a Catholic country, but you're with fallen away Catholics and like those are the worst. And it was kind of funny. I was like, listen, mom, like I appreciate you thinking we're going to be Catholic in a sense because I know you think it's joyful. But, we're doing really well here. And my in-laws and I are getting along really well. And she was like, well, I'm glad you're getting along, but I really wish they would practice. Maybe you can bring them back to the church. So, it's what are you going to do? It is what it is. But yeah, I married into a very anti-Catholic family. They are not a fan. Let me tell you, they are not a fan, Yeah. Okay, let's go back to this guy's family. Finish out this. It's almost done.
Hi.
Because it's fair.
Equal opportunity.
It's fair.
Giving Nazis a month in the calendar is the same as giving Black communities a month on the calendar. Got it.
Mom, is Donald Trump a cult leader? Are you in a cult?
No, I'm not in a cult. I want to make our country better than it has the last 4 years. We are in a terrible, terrible hole. I want to get out of it. I want to bring our country back the way it was.
Mom, is Donald Trump a cult leader? Are you in a cult?
No, I'm not in a cult.
I don't think all MAGA people are in a cult. I do think some of them are. I don't think everyone who voted for Trump is in the cult, but there is a cult faction of MAGA. 1000% a cult faction of MAGA. And I am every day hoping my parents don't go down into that bubble, but it's a spectrum. There's like the tech bros that voted for Trump because of money. They're not in the MAGA cult, right? Then there's the middle of the ground people that are like, I voted for Trump because I think he's better than Kamala Harris. Okay. Then there's the people that are like, Trump is good because he's a Republican and I'm never voting for a Democrat. And then there's like the Trump MAGA cultists who are like masturbating to his picture every night. For sure. Okay.
Dad, should the top 10% richest people in America get a tax break?
They should get their money back out of Social Security and everything like that because they paid more of it in. I deserve every penny I'm getting from Medicaid. And my Social Security checks have been going up since Trump became president. And the people who are losing their ass are people who don't deserve it because they've never paid a dime to the goddamn pot.
Okay, let Chad talk.
Medicare is for people who haven't paid shit.
Dad, should the top 10% richest people in America get a tax break?
They should get their money back out of Social Security and everything like that because they paid more of it in.
Did they pay more of it in? That's the problem. We think in America, the rich people pay more in tax. I remember, I've told you guys this story before, but I worked as a professional nanny, which was a great job. This woman was a doctor, very nice lady. Definitely needed therapy, but nice lady. And she made like $400,000 a year. And I made like $40,000 a year from her. Okay. Which was a lot of money, right? I think that's how much it was. It was a lot of money. And she was struggling to buy a house. And she said, Brittany, how do they expect me to buy a house in this market? And I just looked at her. I was like, you know how much I make. And she's like, I want you to be my nanny forever. And I just kept looking at her like, you know how much I make. What do you mean? And then the reason she was upset was because Seattle was going to put a new tax against people making $250,000 a year. So like they were going to up the tax expectation because in Washington there's no income tax, I believe. And so they were going to charge income tax basically, if I remember correctly, for people making over $250,000. And she was like, how am I going to afford a house? And I was looking at her like, how are any of us going to afford a house? And yeah, that sucks when you're making that much money and you still can't afford a house. And she was right. It took her a long time to be able to actually win a bid for a house because the problem was like, we're in a housing crisis. There aren't enough houses to buy. So it's like the highest bidder and it can go overnight. So again, sometimes I think there's like those people are paying a lot in tax. Like the people making $400,000 a year, the people making $700,000 a year, they're paying a shit ton of tax. The people making, like billions of dollars, they're not paying tax the way you think they are because they know all the loopholes. You know what I mean? Like they're not paying exactly the way you think they're paying. So there's like a discrepancy between how we feel about the money we make. And again, like, I'm happy to pay my fair share of tax. It is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? If I'm going to make more money, I get it. I'm happy to like pay that tax, as especially if the taxes went through to things I really believed in. Then hell yeah. Hell yeah. The dilemma is like, do the taxes go towards the things that are going to benefit us as a country? And I understand from a conservative perspective why that feels like that's not happening. I get from their perspective why they feel like, well, my tax dollars aren't going towards what I wanted to go towards. But, and that's, that's fair. But that's why I think we'll always have an issue in a country that isn't vibing with a cultural value sameness, right? They want us to be like them, and I want us to be more like us. But the world doesn't revolve around America and how she operates. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. There are plenty of countries that are more progressive than America, and there are plenty of places in the world that would welcome you. But sometimes it's scary. Like, it's really scary to remember that America isn't the world, but it's hard not to think of America as your whole world. Because, like, there is no other place that feels like home than the place you know. Now, which is why it's interesting, immigrants, like, my parents were literally able to be in America forever. But I'm having a hard time imagining myself being able to do that. I do. I'm at the stage in my life where I really struggle knowing how to be old outside of America. I don't get it. I can't fathom it yet. I haven't learned it yet. But my parents did it. My parents are going to die in a country they weren't born in, that they love more than the country they came from, which is so valid. I hope that's how every immigrant feels, that they love the country that they're going to die in, right? I hope that's how everybody feels. I wonder if I'll ever get there. Like, I wonder if I could ever get there. America does feel like a home. It's hard to explain, but it really does feel like my home. And Croatia feels like my second home. It really does. But yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to grow old here yet. I haven't figured it out. But, that's for future Brittany to figure out, girl. Because I'm young, You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm young. Okay.
Mom, should we have a king?
You know what? I would rather have a king than live under a Democrat who rules us that does nothing.
Okay, Dad, should we have a
that
king?
stays in the basement. That
We
gives-
have a king.
I'm sorry.
You guys both want a king. Now, Dad,
We have one.
Mom, should we have a king?
I don't really know what to say to that.
Elon Musk did a Heil Hitler Nazi salute on stage
you were gonna
twice,
do
back to
this.
back. Hang on. I just
From
Good for
my-
him.
hang on. Hang on. Hang on.
Let him finish.
Please let me talk.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is my greatest fear. This is my greatest fear. I have not spoken to my parents about the Nazi salute. I am terrified that I'm going to get on FaceTime with them and they're going to throw it up and meme. They've never done it my whole life. I grew up in a very strict home, no cussing, no slurs. No, the only time my dad cussed is always the joke is when he was working in the backyard or working on stuff at work. Okay. But like in our home, my parents were very clear with their language. It wasn't allowed, no Nazi signs, like no Confederate flags. Like this wasn't the bubble I grew up in. So it would be even harder for me to process if my immigrant Iraqi parents threw up the Nazi salute, which they have not. But I'm kind of scared they will. I'm kind of scared that if I FaceTime them, they're going to be like, my heart goes out to you. And I'm like, don't you fucking dare. But I haven't done it. I'm kind of a baby. I'm a baby. Because like, what if I do it and they do it? And I'm like, okay, we're going to have a really serious conversation about memeing the Nazi salute, which again, is not a conversation I thought I'd ever have to have. And again, I haven't had to have it yet. But seeing this man's parents throw up the Nazi salute is crazy. That's crazy. Sir.
Hang on.
Let him finish.
Please let me talk.
That was going to be my goodbye to you guys, from my heart to yours.
You guys are doing a Nazi salute here on the show.
I am.
Jesus.
Okay. So you do think he did a Nazi salute and you're in favor of it, Dad?
I'm all for it.
Oh my God.
Elon Musk.
Oh, hey, bro, your dad's like a Nazi, bro. Oh, no wonder the comment sections were literally saying, hey, dude, your dad's a Nazi. I'm sorry. And I was like, yeah, dude, your dad's a Nazi. He didn't even, I can't tell. Is he being stubborn? Okay, psychology question. Is he literally doubling down? Like, is he having a psychological, like, PDA moment where he's like, yeah, fuck it. I'll do the Nazi salute. I don't give a fuck. Or is he literally a Nazi? Either way, it's fucked, right? Either way, you're fucked. It doesn't matter. But what makes a person who might not be a Nazi double down and throw up the Nazi salute? That's my question. Because I see it in people. I'm like, that's not who you are. Why would you do that? It's like seeing a kid throw a tantrum where the kid like throws something and it's like, why would you do that? The kid, like, they don't know. They almost don't know how to, they don't know how to emote. And so they're like, you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, are you literally a Nazi, dude? Are you literally that fucking stubborn? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But man, to get to this point is so sad. To get to this point is so frustrating. Ugh. Wow. Whoa. Ugh. Dude.
And both of you better be careful saying you want our president dead.
I do.
Whoa.
I'm not advocating to kill him.
Oh, that's crazy. Y'all are so violent. I want our, whoa, I didn't say that. I'm not even going to say that. I do not wish death on anybody. Literally. This is why I'm looking at veganism. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to kill nobody, you know, intentionally. But damn, what bitterness in our hearts do we have to want people dead?
I am in no way
I hope
saying
no
that.
one of
I'm saying I will be
importance
very
listens.
happy.
Both of you better be careful saying you want our president dead.
I do. I'm not advocating to kill him. I am in no
Okay.
way
I hope
saying
no
that.
one of
I'm saying I will be
importance
very
listens to our
happy when
podcast.
he is dead. However
Yes.
he dies, I will be very happy about that.
Fine.
Yep.
He will
That's sad.
die. You acknowledge that, right? You don't think he's immortal.
We all will die and go somewhere.
He won't
Okay.
die in the next 4 years.
All right. So
get
you
used
acknowledge
to
he
it.
will die, that he is human. Interesting.
Oh, and guess what?
Yeah.
Since he doesn't have back-to-back deals, he might get another term.
He's talking about it. Yeah. And both of you better be careful saying you want our.
Yo. Ooh. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't grow up with these parents. Like, this is nothing like my parents in that sense. Like, that is not who I grew up with. So this is so weird for me, but it's hard because, like, the stubbornness is definitely there. Like, they're both stubborn, but they're not like this stubborn, but they are stubborn. This is what I see from people. The stubbornness makes me question if it's real for them. Why are you so stubborn? Why are you doubling down? What is that stubbornness? You know, that's what I'm trying to figure out from people. What is your stubbornness? What is that? Is that real? Is it psychological? Could you go to therapy? Could therapy change these people if they were open to it? But see, they'd have to be open to it. They'd first have to be open to it, which is the problem. Getting people to be open to it is a big thing. This is a huge, I can't believe these parents are just putting themselves on the internet. But at the same time, like, they don't think there's, you know, anything wrong with it, I guess. But man, my dudes. Whoa.
You better be careful.
Oop. Oh, look. Oh, wait. What is this? Look how the channel changes. Look how organized all these are. But then look at, is this the original content? What is this content? Is this the mom's channel initially?
Hello, this is Mary Lou.
What?
From The Necessary Conversation. I was told by the creator to make a quick little clip and explain, due to circumstances out of our control, but by our, I mean Bob and myself, we could not tape again this week. Haley decided to go on a trip none of us knew about. Yeah, another trip. So we couldn't tape on Sunday.
Oh, so they're all in it together in a sense. Wow, look at this. Ooh, I'm going to get copyrighted. Is this their channel? Wait, are the parents the one who put the channel together? And the kids are just guesting on it? Wait, I'm literally shook. This is... Wait, what is this? Oh, this is all Trump propaganda. Trump was right. What? So the kids... Whoa, that's interesting. Family therapy through politics. Interesting. Wow. I didn't realize, I thought it was the kids' channel and the parents were guesting on it, but it looks like it's the parents' channel and the kids are, it looks like, you know what I mean? Now, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about it in general? I first of all, I feel like I love my parents too much to put them on the internet first. And two, I feel like, it feeds into these people's egos a little bit much, right? This is not therapy. Well, obviously it's a joke, right? When they say family therapy through politics, it's a joke. It's not literal, guys. It couldn't be literal. No one's a therapist. It's like the necessary conversation. It's like family therapy through it's a slogan. It's marketing. That's why, like, who's that guy who has the therapy, Gecko Therapy? It's marketing. That's what it is, you know? Let's see. Chess says these conversations are intentionally incendiary and are not intended to be productive. Yeah, I think so too. I think conversations like this are faux. Like they pretend, just like debate bros, they pretend to be serious about the ideas, but they're not. They're just owning each other in different ways. But I think this is like the real reality for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they talk like this, they believe like this, they communicate like this. And then we have to ask ourselves the question about whether or not you go home to these peoples for the holidays. So for those in the audience that were talking about holidays coming up, I'll be real with you. I think this is one of those necessary moments that if you're the minority who's involved in political awareness, because it is a minority thing, like not minority, like minority, but you know what I mean? Like majority of people are not involved in politics. So if you're already interested in politics, you are the minority. And if you're thinking about not going home for that reason, that could be a pretty good reason because you're not going home for politics, you're going home for values. That you know the environment won't be healthy for you or productive and it might not be worth it. There is nothing better than having a healthy holiday season. And there's a reason why we make movies out of bad holiday situations because we all have to go home to see our dysfunctional families. If your family's going to be dysfunctional, don't go home for the holidays. If they're going to be functional and loving, go home for the holidays. You know? Yeah, I think what I want to focus on moving forward is always being kind and compassionate, always. Never wishing bad on anybody. And making sure that if there's an opportunity in which I feel like my emotional labor can help people, I'll make that attempt. But if I in any way come to the conclusion that it's not going to help those people and it's not going to help me, we're not having the conversation. And I think that that's the best way to do it. Look, I know we tell ourselves, and this is another psychological phenomenon with humans, I know we tell ourselves we want peace and love, but the truth is that negative media, stuff like this, does better in numbers. That ultimately hearing good stories isn't what we actually want. We think we do, but it's not the thing that makes us, you know, shoot into gear. Sometimes the best way to make people do something is for them to consume the negative. Yes, it crushes a lot of people under the weight of the negativity, but it also kind of keeps you self-aware and going. So there's a desire for people to feel like they are suffering or to acknowledge their suffering in order to keep them going, to keep them motivated, right? There's some sort of correlation between stagnation and on the other side of it, like contentedness, in which you are so content with living and existing, you run the risk of becoming stagnant because you forget that you need a necessary push forward to do something greater or next. So make sure that while you're practicing your contentedness, you're not also getting into a secret rut you didn't realize was happening to you, because stagnation, you know, it comes in many forms. And that's why growth always has to be the next. Sometimes people, I do think, they feel like I have a business, I have a family, I got a job, I went to college, I did the things, I have a house. What else is there? There's so much more. So even when life looks great, it could be a form of stagnation. But, you know, that's up to you in your journey if you want to take it further, right? Chad says, I'm not trying to be Sam Cedar versus 20 conservatives in December. My brain melted. I couldn't even finish the video. That's what it's like. I'm not going to play. Sam Cedar versus 20 conservatives is and can be what it's like visiting my family. It's a lot. And then you're sitting there like, how can I even have this conversation with you when I see that in all debate bubbles. That's what happened with the debate boy bubble. The more I meditate on it, the more I reflect on it, the more I dissect it, I realized I felt the same way with them that I did with my conservative parents. It felt like they would say something and I'm like, how can I have a conversation with you if you're starting off on this premise? Like, how can I even start to dissect this conversation if you're starting off on a premise that's so false? Now I have to take apart this false narrative in order to have the real one, but I can't even get to the real one because you've already started off here. And that's what it feels like in a lot of debate bubbles, that they're not even starting off with like a foundation of realness. And that's why it feels so exhausting to talk to my family sometimes, because we're not even starting off in a real place, you know? But I love them. I love those people. I think everyone deserves dignity and compassion and love. And I wish everybody got better. But like, yeah, I'm going to need us to start off like with an understanding that's real instead of a gotcha. I'm gonna get you. Gonna get you one way or another. You know, it's like, you know, I'm not trying to get you. Which is why I do shout out to Elle. If you guys haven't seen us have a conversation about veganism, I really appreciated the way that she came to the conversation. I think her viewers, from the way that I saw their chat, appreciated how I came to the conversation. There are ways to have conversations in good faith. I just don't think it's the typical practice because there's some part of our monkey brain that wants you to yell at each other. There's a part of our monkey brain that wants the drama. We are more involved when there's drama than less involved. When things are peaceful, there's no reason to create interesting displays of like communication in that way that gets our brain going. And that particular like something bad might happen. Ooh, I'm watching because something might happen. You know, that like, yeah, drama equal dopamine for sure. That's why people in my chat are like, sometimes they'll be like, oh my God, please talk about Ethan Klein. Please talk about this. Please talk about this. Look, I could be milking fucking views right now for Ethan Klein stuff. And look, as a YouTuber, I really should be doing it. I do. I fight with myself every day. Like, Brittany, there's so much Ethan Klein drama. Cover it. You'll get so much money. You'll make money. You'll make actual money. And I'm like, I really try only to cover it if I think it's interesting. And I just don't think it's interesting right now, which as a business person, I hope you know I'm doing a very bad job. If you go become a YouTuber, you got to cover this stuff. And maybe I will if it's interesting. But know this, I really struggle doing stuff that I don't think is interesting. Which is the neurodivergency probably, right? Where I'm like, you know, but I'll cover it if I think it's interesting. I think it's so boring right now. I much would prefer watching this guy's family fight, which is so much more interesting to me because I'm like, oh, this is a bubble, you know? But I'm sure we'll catch up on Ethan eventually. But yeah, it's like too boring to me right now. Which is so interesting because it's so interesting to him. It's so important to him. It's so important to so many people what's happening in that bubble. And I just literally could not care less. I'm sure it will be more interesting in a few months, maybe. You know, Chad says, I feel like you've covered the major points where at this point it would just be repeating yourself about the BS. And people love it. People love it though. Viewers love it. My chat is so much more active and popular when I cover it, even if I'm repeating. That's why people do it. I can't fault humans, by the way. I couldn't even fault myself if I engaged with it, to be honest, because I get it. I don't even think it's unethical, by the way. I just think it's boring, but I don't think it's unethical. Like, I think it's how humans work, where they could do it day in and day out, and my numbers would go up. I could even do an experiment where for the next 60 days, we only cover continuous, like, what is making people mad, and I guarantee you I will become more popular. But I don't have to do that because you guys are going to like the stream and become YouTube members. So I don't have to play into all of that stuff. You know what I mean? But I will cover it if I think it's interesting. It's just I don't think it's interesting. So like the stream, become a YouTube member, more content coming out for YouTube members. And then BoJack Horseman season 3, baby. Season 3, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Chaz says it's market pressure. Capitalism has such an annoying incentives. It really does. Yeah. I am stoked for season 3 of BoJack. It's ended so crazy, season 2. So I'm stoked. That's going to start definitely by the end of the month, if not before the end of the month. We're starting that. I also have already recorded an episode of Love is Blind, so I'm going to edit it after stream today and get it up for you. Episode 6. And so we're halfway through Love is Blind. We're finishing it up. We're going to wrap it up. And I'm pretty stoked about it. Yeah, I'm really happy with how things are going. Yeah. Okay, now, do we have anything else to say today? Do you have any questions? Do we have any thoughts? Because I'm done on what I wanted to present to you today. Chet says you should review Attack on Titan. That would be wild. That would be wild. It might be too long, but I have thought about rewatching Attack on Titan with the Discord. We're going to do Arcane. We're going to dissect that. We're going to dissect other things. I really did think about doing Attack on Titan because it's such a good example of bubbles. It's so good. It would be so much better to have the conversation in real time with people in a sense. But yeah, there's some good stuff there, right? That says, hey, Brittany, you want to say I'm sorry if my past comment of mine accidentally spoiled part of Love is Blind? Hey, no big deal, guys. I don't remember who posts the spoilers, but I also don't announce it enough. I need to announce it more. But also, I just want to say I'm pretty proud of myself for being unspoiled by most of the stuff. So, I've been unspoiled, for most of the stuff. So I'm pretty happy with that, you know? But yeah, no problem. It's going to happen. It's not a big deal. I don't announce. I should announce it more. I always forget. To be like, don't spoil me. But like, you know, what are you going to do? It's the problem with reaction content. Trust me, my feed has been trying to spoil it. Love is Blind for forever now. And I'm always like, no spoilers. So no problem. So yeah, we'll do Arcane in the Discord next. We're finishing up. I'm glad my mom died. Our last session for book club is March 23rd. Please come join us. Discord 101, great for new members, open topics. And we'll have a theme around frameworks and belief systems and how you come to conclusions. So that's our theme this month. Then we're doing a Smash event on the Switch. Come join us if you have a Switch. It'll be fun. Just like a little game day. Chill Sunday afternoon. And then we'll start Arcane on Sundays after that. And then we'll get through that. It has 2 seasons. We'll dissect it together. It'll be a lot of fun. So April, what will that be? Like April 12th? Something like that. April 13th will be the first day of Arcane. Come join us. And make sure you're 18 plus because we don't want minors in our Discord. Thank you. Okay, now. Chad says, not trying to tell you what to do, but I'd be interested in a podcast about your opinions on violence with a focus on political violence. I could definitely dissect that. Let me put it in my list of content. Would you ever play a game for the stream like Elden Ring? No, I'm not a gamer. I'm not doing it. Thank you. I really, no. But I appreciate the ask. I'm really bad at games. I'm not even bad, like in the bad way. I don't know. My brain doesn't engage with it. And it would just it would make a bad stream. Trust me. It would make a bad stream. Now, if it was old games, like I love the Mario games, but I'm not a gamer. I don't want you guys to get used to thinking Brittany will be like a jack of all trades. Like I don't want to do that to you or to me. You know, I don't want to do that to you or to me. Okay. With that said, that's it for today. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. I'll see you again tomorrow. And, yeah. See you tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Please like the stream before you go. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.